Hey guys, tonight we set out on a journey most would call bold, but it's really just cold, wet, and impossible to glamorize once you're actually in it. Everyone talks about Viking raids like they're action movies, but the real thing, it starts with your face buried in damp wool, half asleep, swaying violently on a longship that smells like fish, sweat, and desperation. You're not rowing yet, someone else is, but your turn is coming. And as you blink awake into the gray-blue half-light of dawn, the first thing you notice isn't the threat of death. It's your frozen fingers, clamped around a soaked fur cloak that's doing absolutely nothing to keep you warm. That's the thing, no one tells you the drama isn't in the battle cries, it's in the cold. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're already miserable, and the day hasn't even started. The North Sea doesn't care that you're trying to look brave. Salt spray blasts your face every few seconds. The wind cuts sideways through your cloak like it's made of paper. You pull it tighter, but it's no use. All around you, bearded men grunt, joke, pray, or stay silent. The rhythm of the oars sounds steady, at least for now. You feel the planks creaking beneath you, soaked through from yesterday's rain, and you try not to think about what happens if the boat tips over. You can't swim, most of them can't. A Viking longship is beautiful in a painting. In reality, it's a 20-meter headache of splinters and seasickness. One man already threw up. You hope he's not the one rowing when the time comes. Across the water, someone calls out the coastline is near. It's a low rise of dark green against the pewter sky. England, maybe, or Francia, or just some village with no name that will have no chance. That's the idea anyway, but you've heard stories. Not all raids go smoothly. Sometimes the villagers fight back. Sometimes the weather turns. Sometimes you just get unlucky. You reach down to touch the hilt of your sword, still sheathed and cold. It's more for show than utility. You've only ever practiced on straw dummies. Your fingers tremble slightly. You tell yourself it's the cold, but you know better. The coast gets closer. You start to see movement smoke from chimneys. Tiny figures moving between thatched roofs. They don't know yet, or maybe they do, and they're pretending not to. A small part of you hopes they've all run off. No screaming, no blood, just empty houses and silver to take. You know that's not how it works, but still, you glance at the man beside you. He's sharpening a blade with slow, meditative strokes. He's done this before, probably more than once. You want to ask him how many. Instead, you look away and pretend not to care. Then someone shouts the command, oars in, shields up. Everyone leans forward in perfect, silent rhythm as the longship scrapes into the shallows. The grinding noise of wood on stone sends a tremor through your spine. You hear seabirds scatter overhead. That's the moment it becomes real. No turning back. The front of the ship lurches, and you follow the others over the side, boots slapping into knee-deep surf. It's colder than you thought possible. Your breath catches. You stumble once, right yourself, then push forward. The beach is all rock and seaweed slick, uneven, and determined to humiliate you. Someone behind you laughs as you nearly fall. You clench your jaw and keep moving. The salt stings your eyes. You think about those old poems that talk about warriors striding ashore like gods. You look like a wet cat dragging a sword too heavy for its dignity. That's when it hits you. This was never about glory. Not here. Not like this. This is about hunger, coin, and fear. Historians still argue whether most raids were political statements, economic plunders, or just seasonal work for bored Norsemen. Standing here now, your votes for all of the above. As you trudge up the shoreline, the wet sand pulls at your boots. One sticks. You yank it free and nearly lose your balance again. You can already feel the blisters forming heel, toes, probably places you haven't even invented curses for yet. The village looms just beyond the trees. A few shouts ring out. Someone's seen you. There's no more hiding. You try to calm your breath, but your heart has other ideas. It drums against your ribs like it's staging a rebellion of its own. You grip your sword tighter and join the line. Shoulder to shoulder now, waiting for the word to charge. The man beside you farts loudly. A couple of guys chuckle. You can't help it, you laugh too. Briefly, until someone smacks the back of your head with a gruff, "Focus." But the laughter helped. A moment of absurdity in the middle of what could be your last morning. It's strange how humor always shows up uninvited when you need it most. Like it's the last defense against reality. Or maybe the first. You smell smoke now. But not from fire yet. Just cooking fires. Maybe peat or old straw. You wonder what breakfast the villagers were making. Probably better than anything you've had in weeks. Dried fish and barley gruel don't exactly inspire enthusiasm, but that's not what you came here for. You came for silver, livestock, maybe a few captives if they don't run too fast. You came because someone promised it would be worth it. You came because you didn't want to be left behind. You finally reached the top of the beach, trees thin out. There it is, the village. About a dozen huts, a larger hall, a wooden cross on a stake Christian. That'll make them angry, or make them pray. Either way, it doesn't matter. You take one more breath, settle into your stance, and feel your feet slide a bit in the mud. So much for intimidation. A horn sounds behind you. That's the signal. Time to raid. You move forward, unsure if your legs are obeying out of courage or pure momentum. Either way, you're going. And just like that, your first raid begins not with a war cry, but with a slip on wet seaweed and a muttered curse. You recover, barely, and keep charging, because the man behind you is already running and you don't want to be the one who held the line back. The huts grow closer, you see faces, panic, children, a dog barking like it's part of the defense, and all you can think is, I didn't sign up for this part. But you did. You really did. You don't feel like a warrior when the first scream splits the air. It's not battle music. It's a raw, human sound that sticks under your fingernails. The village seems to expand suddenly. Like the huts are taller now. The fence is higher. The spaces between buildings just wide enough to get lost in. Someone runs past you, one of your own, red-faced, panting, swinging his axe too wide. You try to keep your focus, but the ground is slippery with frost and mud, and your boots aren't built for sprinting. That empty stomach you woke up with starts twisting now. Not with hunger, but with a thick, sour taste of nerves. Your feet carry you forward, but your brain drags behind, still wondering how the morning got here so fast. A chicken explodes out of a crate beside you. You nearly stab it. It's not the most heroic image, but it reminds you how easily everything goes sideways. Raiding is messy. There's no formation, no glorious duel, just noise, motion, and the sudden realization that you're swinging a sword in a place where someone was eating breakfast 10 minutes ago. You finally reach the first hut. Someone else has already kicked the door in. The roof sags, patched with moss and straw, and the air inside smells of smoke, wool, and old meat. It's too dark to see clearly, but you step in anyway. Inside, there's movement fast, chaotic, and before you can process it, something crashes against your shoulder. A clay jar. It doesn't break, but it hurts. You swing instinctively, missing completely and stumbling into the central hearth. Hot ash swirls into your eyes. You cough, trip, and land with your knee in something soft and wet. You really hope it's stew. You hear footsteps behind you, your crew, or maybe a villager, but no one stops to check. You scramble up, heart racing, sword raised, only to find the place already empty. Whoever threw that jar is gone. You just raided a pantry. Outside, the air feels sharper, more shouting now. Some of it's yours, some of it theirs. A shriek echoes from the back of the village. A woman. Probably. You wish you didn't know that. But you do. A dog barks again. Closer this time. You step out and nearly trip over it. It lunges, teeth flashing, and you shove it away with your shield. It whimpers and darts off, disappearing behind a hut. Another man barrels past you, laughing wildly, holding a basket of something, maybe cheese. He looks far too excited for someone holding dairy. You almost call out to him, but you don't. You're not sure what you'd even say. Instead, you glance around, trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing now. You're in the middle of a raid, and you feel useless, like a confused tourist with a sword. You edge around a hut and find two of your crew hammering at a locked chest. One grunts and gestures for you to cover them. You nod, grateful for something that feels like direction. You stand guard, watching the muddy path between houses, the forest line just beyond. That's when a figure bursts from a nearby shed, a young man, maybe your age, maybe younger. He's got a stick, no armor, no plan, just fury. He charges you like it's personal. You sidestep, trip him, and he falls hard. The stick clatters away. He tries to scramble up, but one of your crew yells, "Leave it," and you back off. The young man glares at you, chest heaving, then bolts into the woods. You let him go. You don't feel brave. You feel tired. Back at the chest, the lid finally gives with a crack. Inside silver, no, just cloth. Maybe some spices. Someone mutters a curse. Still, they grab what they can. It's not treasure, but it's something. You help them tie it into a sack. Your sword hand aches from gripping too tightly. You shake it out. This isn't how the sagas told it. There's no glory in ransacking cupboards. Historians still argue whether most raiders believed in Valhalla or just pretended to for morale. Right now, you'd settle for a dry shirt and 5 minutes to breathe. You hear hooves, your stomach drops. Someone yells "Riders," and chaos reignites. You see your crewmates scatter, some running for the beach, others crouching behind fences. You follow instinct and duck into a half-collapsed hut. Through a gap in the wall, you spot them local defenders, maybe 6 or 7 on horseback, armored better than you, armed with long spears and very clear motivation. They circle, shout commands, search for soft targets. You hold your breath. One rides past your hiding spot. You stay frozen. You could try to run, but you'd never make it. The hoofbeats fade slowly. You risk a glance outside. Some of your crew are regrouping. Others aren't moving. A man you recognize, tall, loud, with a wolfskin cloak, is lying face down in the mud, his axe still in his hand. No one goes to him. Not yet. You finally stand, legs trembling slightly. You've been here less than an hour. You're covered in soot. You've lost your sense of direction, and you're starting to realize why so many raids ended badly. You thought the hard part would be the fighting. Turns out it's everything. You finally meet back up with a few others near the village hall. It's the biggest building, and it's already been hit. The door's missing. Inside, it looks like someone lit a fire and changed their mind halfway through. There's smoke, broken furniture, and what might be a few half-looted relics. A silver chalice lies in the ashes. You reach for it, then stop. It's still hot. Someone beat you to it. You take a moment, breathe. Your lungs feel tight. Your sword is useless weight. You wipe your face with your sleeve and realize you've got ash in your teeth. There's movement outside again. More villagers. No, just more of your own. Finally regrouping. One man limps past, blood on his leg. Another carrying a chicken like it's a prize. You don't ask. You just nod. And he nods back. No one's sure if you're winning. Another crewman, young and eager, says, "We've got 5 minutes." You don't ask what he means. 5 minutes until what? Until retreat? Until reinforcements? You've stopped caring. You just want to not die. That seems like a fine goal for the day. You make your way to the edge of the village again. Near the path you came from, smoke curls behind you. Some huts are burning now. One is fully ablaze. It crackles and pops, sending up black columns into the cloudy sky. You wonder who lived there. A family, a priest. It doesn't matter. It's all the same now. You stand, silent, watching the flames and trying to decide if this counts as victory. Your cloak smells like seawater, wood smoke, and something darker. Your ears ring faintly, and for the first time, you realize you've barely heard anything clearly for the past hour. It's been noise, just layered noise. You finally sit on a rock. Your legs are jelly. Your hand is bleeding, though you don't remember how. A small cut, nothing serious, but still, you wipe it on your cloak. There's movement in the trees again, some of the defenders, retreating now. They didn't stay long. Maybe they knew better. Maybe they're regrouping for revenge. Either way, you know you won't be here when they return. This place isn't worth dying for. Nothing here is, except Maybe the story you'll tell when you get back. You'll polish it, embellish it, say you fought 3 men, say you took the hall alone. No one will fact check. No one will ask why your boots still smell like goat. You're trying to catch your breath, but even that feels like work now, each inhale rough with ash, sea salt, and the smoke curling from half-collapsed roofs behind you. You shift your weight on the uneven ground, mud squelching beneath your heel, and try to stand with some semblance of dignity. It doesn't work. Your legs are stiff, your back aches from hours of tension, and you realize your sword arm has gone slightly numb. You rotate your wrist slowly, pretending you're just stretching, but inside, you're panicking. What if someone rushes you right now? What if a straight offender decides to play hero? You grip the sword again too tight and tell yourself you're fine. You're not. None of this is fine. You look down at your boots and notice they're caked in mud and streaks of greenish-black seaweed, the kind that smells like rotting fish and misery. You're supposed to be raiding, but right now, it feels more like surviving an obstacle course designed by someone who hates you. The wind picks up again, cutting through the village like a knife. Your cloak flaps behind you in a way that might look dramatic if you weren't shivering. You finally trudge toward the center of the village again, trying to stay near the others. Strength in numbers, or at least in not being the last one left standing. That's when it happens. Your foot hits a patch of slick seaweed, and you go down hard. A thunk, a splash, a grunt. Your pride dies a little. You're now sitting in a puddle with your sword buried halfway into the mud beside you, and no one even saw. Maybe that's the worst part. You get up quickly, trying to pretend it didn't happen, but your whole left side is wet now, and you're starting to smell like a compost heap. As you move forward again, you realize you're not alone in your humiliation. Someone else is hunched over near the livestock pen, coughing violently while a pig snorts beside him, unimpressed. Welcome to the glamour of a Viking raid. You hear laughter, sudden and sharp. It's one of your crew, tall and lanky, holding a silver goblet high like he's won something. Riches, he shouts, and someone throws a piece of stale bread at him. It hits his shield and falls to the ground, attracting a curious chicken. You can't help it, you smile. For a split second, you're back in the longhouse, listening to songs about raids that felt like legends. But here, with mud on your face and your ankle throbbing from the fall, it's not legendary. It's ridiculous. Historians still argue whether Vikings were brutal invaders or opportunistic traders with PR issues. Today, they'd have to admit it's both, depending on the hour and whether someone remembered to tie down the loot. You finally reach the livestock pen, where 2 others are trying to wrangle a goat. The goat is winning. It dodges, kicks, and lets out a bleat so loud it feels like an insult. One of the men slips in the muck and lands flat on his back, laughing hysterically. You wonder if he's lost it or just decided to stop caring. You consider helping, but think better of it. You're not in the mood to be headbutted. Instead, you move past them toward a low-roof storage shed that looks promising. The door's half open. Inside, you find barrels, cloth sacks, and a pile of what looks like dried fish. Your stomach growls loudly. You haven't eaten since yesterday, and even the thought of salted herring is appealing now. You grab a chunk, chew, and immediately regret it. The fish is tough, overly salty, and somehow manages to be both dry and slimy. You eat it anyway. There's no time for dignity. A rat scurries across the floor near your boot, and you jump just a little too obviously. You look around to make sure no one saw. Coast clear. You chew slowly, listening to the distant thud of boots, the occasional clang of metal, and the endless squawk of disturbed chickens. You wonder what time it is. Not that it matters. Your stomach's clock says still empty, and your body says already done. You rejoin the group near the hall again, now partially collapsed. They've got sacks of grain, 2 small barrels of ale, and a collection of church items, crosses, candlesticks, some carved icons. One man, the old one with the burn-scarred hand, holds up a wooden carving of Mary and chuckles. She's coming home with us. You don't laugh. You're not sure why. Maybe it's the smoke still hanging in your lungs. Maybe it's the realization that these aren't symbols anymore. They're souvenirs of chaos. You pick up one of the barrels and nearly drop it. It's heavier than it looks. Everything you steal is heavy. Physically, yes, but it also drags at your spirit in a way no saga ever warned you about. You stagger down the muddy slope back toward the shore, barrel awkward in your arms. The boat is visible now, beached where you left it, the tide creeping slowly closer. Others are already hauling goods that direction. No one's talking much now. The mood has shifted. No more shouting. No more forced bravado. Just tired men trudging through filth, hoping no one else shows up with a spear. You slip once, catch yourself, and keep walking. Your arms ache. You keep wondering how much longer this will last. Not just today, this life. You glance at a younger raider, maybe 17, dragging a sack nearly his size. He looks like he's aged 5 years in 1 hour. So do you. By the time you reach the boat, your arms are trembling. You drop the barrel beside the others and sit down hard on the pebbled shore. Your cloak clings to you like seaweed. Someone offers you a sip from a flask. You take it. It's strong, burns your throat, but clears your head a little. You pass it on. A man nearby mutters something about lighting more fires before they leave. Someone else shrugs and says, "Don't bother. Smoke's already done the talking." You watch the sky. It's lighter now, almost noon, but the clouds are thick and low. The sun barely breaks through, like it doesn't want to watch. You close your eyes for a moment and hear the surf, soft and rhythmic. For just a heartbeat, it feels peaceful. Then a shout breaks the silence. Someone's spotted movement on the tree line again. You're up before you know it, hand on your sword, legs screaming in protest. Nothing comes, just wind and birds. But the tension stays, like a muscle that forgot how to unclench. Someone checks the ship's rudder, another tightens the ropes. You find yourself pacing, unable to sit still. You glance back at the village, smoke still rising from the rooftops, a silent witness to what just happened. You'll leave soon, back to the sea, back to rowing. You're not even sure what you got out of this. A handful of goods, a few shiny objects, some fish you regret eating. And yet, you know this raid will be told differently tonight. Heroic, decisive, full of valor and vengeance. You'll probably tell it that way too, but in your bones, you'll remember the goat, the fall, the fish, the scream. You'll remember slipping on seaweed and shame, while history calls it conquest, and you'll wonder how many more days like this you can take. The smoke clings to your clothes long after you've left the village behind, seeping into every thread like a story you'll never quite shake off. As the last of the loot is loaded onto the ship and the crew assembles by the water's edge, you glance back over your shoulder at the thatched roofs and broken fences. It looks peaceful now, in the way scorched ruins always do quiet, not because calm has returned, but because everything loud has already been taken or silenced. A few goats roam aimlessly between smoldering door frames, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows as if nothing's happened at all. You'd think a village in chaos would smell worse, but it's mostly wet ash and burning moss, mixed with the strange, oily scent of roasted barley and panic. You wipe your hands on your tunic, which only makes them dirtier, and shuffle closer to the others. No one says much. This is the part of the raid that feels like a long exhale. The fire's lit, the silver's in the sacks, and now all that's left is getting out without dying. You pass one of the huts as you head back toward the longship, and there's a low, bleating sound from inside. You pause. Just a goat, maybe two. One of the crew steps up behind you, mutters, "Leave it. Not worth it." He's right. You nod and move on. But part of you still thinks about it, how even animals get left behind, confused and alone, and how those tiny, living remnants will be the ones to walk among the ruins long after the boats are gone. No one talks about that in the sagas. They leave out the part where a kid goat watches a monastery burn. You reach the beach and see others finishing up the last of the loading. A few men are trying to hoist a heavy iron cauldron into the boat. They curse as they tip it, only for cold blackened water to spill out and soak one of them from hip to knee. You try not to laugh, but it slips out anyway, a wheezing, tired kind of laugh that doesn't sound entirely sane. It's contagious. A couple others join in. For a brief moment, the tension cracks. Even in a raid, people need to release the absurdity somehow. but it fades quickly, replaced by the grunts of labor and the calls to push off before anything or anyone shows up to stop you. You help shove the boat back into the tide, boots slipping on wet stones as the hull resists. The longship groans like it's waking up from a bad dream. You heave with your shoulder, your thighs burn, and finally, it budges. With one last push, the ship's in deep enough. Men scramble aboard, some stumbling, some leaping with a showy grace that would be impressive if they weren't covered in soot. You're one of the last to board. As you climb over the edge, your hand slips, and you scrape your knuckles on a splintered oarlock. You curse under your breath, not from pain, but from the sheer annoyance of it. Just one more indignity for the list. You settle into your seat, soaked, sore, and sticky with salt. You reach for an oar, feel the rough wood under your palm, and brace yourself. The order comes row, and the rhythm starts. The oars dip into the water in clumsy unison, and the boat lurches forward. It's not elegant. It never is. The rowing is brutal, not because it's hard, but because it doesn't end. Your muscles scream almost immediately. You row anyway. What else can you do? The shore recedes slowly. You can still see the village, reduced now to flickers of smoke and tiny figures moving among the ruins. Probably survivors, or just ghosts. You blink the sting from your eyes and keep rowing. A wave hits the side of the boat, splashing cold brine onto your already soaked knees. It doesn't even surprise you. The sea doesn't care about your bad day. It just keeps being cold. The rowers fall into something like a rhythm, though it's more desperate than coordinated. The man beside you coughs violently every few minutes. The one across from you is muttering to himself, maybe praying, maybe just talking nonsense. A few seats down, a raider tries to open a bottle of ale with his teeth and fails. Another laughs, then chokes on seawater. It's not exactly the triumphant return you imagined. You steal a glance at the loot pile in the center of the ship. It looks smaller now. Somehow, it always does. A few sacks, a couple of barrels, some crude jewelry, and a rusted sword that someone swears belonged to a nobleman. You doubt it. The handle's wrapped in old linen, the blade chipped like a butcher's knife, but someone will tell a story about it, back home in the hall. They'll say you took it from a Saxon lord after a duel in the rain. They won't say you found it on the ground next to a frightened teenage boy who ran as fast as he could. You'll nod and let them believe the story, because that's how it works. Hours pass, your back aches from rowing, and your arms feel like wet rope. The coastline has vanished behind low fog, and now it's just open sea. You switch sides on the oar at the call of the leader, trying to ignore the blisters forming along your palms. You wish someone would invent gloves already, but they haven't. So, you suffer. That's the Viking way. Right. Grit your teeth, keep rowing, and tell better lies later. At one point, the wind shifts and carries the smell of smoke back toward you, faint, but unmistakable. The village is far behind now, but it still follows you, in smell, in ache, in memory. You start to drift off while rowing, your brain sliding into that strange, half-sleep state where your hands keep moving, but your thoughts dissolve into nonsense. You picture a goat wearing a crown, shouting orders to raiders. Then you're jolted back when your oar hits the water wrong and splashes your face. The others chuckle. You mutter something about dreaming of dinner. No one answers. They're too tired, or maybe just too cold. You hunker down, rowing slower now, muscles heavy and wet like sacks of stones. The sky stays gray, the sea never ending, and time loses meaning. Eventually, someone calls a rest. Oars are pulled in. You let yours drop with a thud and sag forward, resting your forehead against your wrist. You've been rowing for what feels like days. Your tunic is crusted with salt, your boots squish when you move, and your mouth tastes like something died in it. Probably that fish you ate earlier. Someone passes around a water skin. You take a sip and immediately spit it back. It's not water. It's the worst ale you've ever tasted. The man grins. Better than seawater, he says. You disagree, but don't argue. You shift on the bench and glance around. Everyone looks wrecked, eyes sunken, arms limp, faces gray with exhaustion. One man is asleep sitting up. Another is picking at something in his teeth with a fishbone. You watch them and realize this is what a raid really looks like. Not swords in the air and victorious howls, but a boat full of cold, wet men trying to stay awake and not vomit. Historians still debate whether the Vikings truly feared death or just got used to it. Judging by the silence on this boat, you suspect it's the latter. Death stops being dramatic after the third time you dodge it before lunch. You lean back against the side of the boat, eyes half closed, and wonder if this is the worst part or the best. At least here, no one is shouting, no one is chasing you. You're just floating, drifting, aching. You think about the village again, the huts, the smoke, the strange silence afterward. You wonder what the survivors will do now. Rebuild, mourn, leave. You wonder if they'll tell stories about today, too. Probably not the same ones you will. But that's the thing about raids, there's always more than one version. You wake with a start when the boat jolts sideways. A sharp shift in balance as the sea rolls beneath you in that slow, relentless rhythm you can never quite get used to. You must have nodded off. You weren't planning to. But exhaustion isn't something you argue with. It simply claims you. Now, your neck aches from the angle you slept in. Your spine feels like it's made of rusted chainmail, and your lips are cracked from salt and wind. Around you, the others stir, grunt, or stare silently out at the gray-blue expanse. Someone sneezes. Another scratches his beard like it might yield a solution to everything wrong with this journey. You sit up, stretch, and immediately regret it as your shoulders scream. There's a sharp pain in your lower back, but you ignore it. What else is new? You squint at the sky, still overcast, still colorless, still the same dull canvas that makes time feel circular. No sunrise or sunset here, just light that never quite arrives and never quite fades. You rub your eyes and look toward the shoreline, which is mercifully growing larger again. Land, finally. But land doesn't mean rest. Land means unloading, arguing, and marching sometimes all at once. The longship coasts into shallower water, scraping gently against gravel and sand. The oars are drawn in. The silence is unnerving. It's not the home shore, not yet, but a midway stop, one of those makeshift landing points used to stash loot or regroup. A few huts, a lean-to, maybe a half-buried storage pit if you're lucky. You disembark slowly, boots sinking into wet sand again, and realize your legs no longer function like legs, more like wooden stilts strapped on by a drunk carpenter. You wobble, catch your balance, and mutter something unintelligible. Someone behind you pats your back and says, "You walk like a raided cow." You don't even correct him. You just nod. Once on land, the crew scatters into semi-useful patterns. Some start unloading cargo, some wander toward the tree line to relieve themselves or look for firewood, and a few just collapse into piles like sacks of grain. You join a group gathering around a small fire pit, already smoking gently. Someone's managed to find dry kindling. You're not sure how. Magic. Maybe, or just dumb luck. You crouch beside the fire, extending your hands toward the warmth like a man who's forgotten what heat feels like. The moment the flames lick your palms, it's as if your body remembers how miserable it's been. Everything hurts in unison now, not dramatically, just steadily, like a background song of suffering. You try to stretch, only to find your tunic stiff with dried salt. It creaks, your knees pop. You're officially a collection of unpleasant noises. Someone tosses a chunk of smoked meat into your lap, probably venison, definitely tough. You chew slowly, methodically, and stare at the embers. A small part of you wonders what you'd be doing if you hadn't joined this crew. Farming, maybe. Dead from illness before 20. Also likely, historians still argue whether Viking raiders were born warriors or just desperate farmers who got good at rowing. You're not sure anymore. Maybe both. Maybe neither. You take another bite and try not to think about the boy from the village, the one who ran into the trees with nothing but a stick. You keep seeing his face when you close your eyes. One of the men starts singing, off-key but loud. It's a drinking song, the kind you half know from 100 nights of pretending to be braver than you are. Others join in, mumbling through the parts they don't remember. which is most of it. You hum along for a verse or two before falling silent. The fire crackles louder than the music. The song fades soon after, replaced by snoring and the occasional cough. You watch the sky turn a darker shade of gray. It might be evening, or it might just be one of those moments where the clouds press lower. Either way, you decide to lie down for a bit, using your rolled cloak as a pillow. It's wet, of course, but less uncomfortable than the ground. As you lie there, staring up at nothing, you hear the sound of someone carving nearby, the telltale scraping of blade on wood. You turn your head and see a young raider, maybe 16, whittling what looks like a tiny figure. It's not bad, honestly. Maybe a bear, maybe a wolf. Hard to tell. You nod at him, he nods back. No words needed. Just two tired people, barely older than boys, trying to remember what it felt like to do something quiet. You close your eyes again. The wind shifts, bringing with it the scent of pine and damp earth. For a moment, it almost feels peaceful. Almost. Then someone shouts. Not loudly, not urgently, just enough to break the moment. A small argument has started near the boat. Something about who gets to carry which bag of silver. You roll onto your side, groan, and push yourself up. The world tilts a little, but you steady yourself. You walk over slowly, listening. Two men are facing off, voices low and bitter. You didn't even go into the hall. One says, "You hid behind the chicken coop. I carried 2 barrels." The other snaps, "And you dropped one." The first replies. It escalates quickly. Someone throws a punch. It misses. Another lands. The others jump in, not to fight, but to pull them apart. You stand back, arms crossed, not intervening, not encouraging, just watching. This happens every time. Sharing the spoils is never simple, not because people are greedy, but because they're tired, sore, and trying to pretend the day was worth it. Eventually, things settle. The 2 men are separated, muttering curses and kicking sand. The leader, a grizzled man with a voice like gravel and eyes like frozen pond water, lays down the final decision. Equal shares, no more talk, no more fighting. Someone spits, no one argues. You help tie off the bags, even though your fingers still sting from rowing. You do it because it gives you something to do, something besides thinking. You hoist one bag and feel its weight in your shoulder. Not just silver, but stories, decisions, mistakes. As night, or something like it, settles in, you return to the fire. A few men sleep sitting up. One is curled around a waterskin like a child with a toy. Another sharpens his blade with the calm obsession of someone who's seen too much. You sit, stare into the fire again, and feel the warmth reach your face. You wonder if the village has stopped burning by now, if the boy in the woods has returned, if the goats will ever be herded again. These thoughts sneak up on you. Uninvited, you let them. What else can you do? You've stopped trying to guard your mind from what it remembers. Now you just let it whisper. Someone tosses another log onto the fire. Sparks shoot upward like tiny stars. You watch them disappear into the blackness, one by one. Your hands are cracked and red. Your clothes still damp. You're so tired you could fall asleep sitting upright, but your brain won't let you. It replays the day in fragment sword swings, shouts, slips, and stumbles. The smell of that burned stew, the dog that tried to bite you, the laugh you shared with the man who later disappeared from view. You realize something quietly. This wasn't a good day. It wasn't a noble one either, but it was a day survived. And in this world, that counts for something. You wake to the distant crack of a tree branch and the low hum of insects, the kind of ambient noise that makes you wonder, for a split second, where and even who you are. The fire's down to a few glowing coals, and the gray sky above hasn't changed since yesterday. As if the sun decided this stretch of the world wasn't worth visiting. Your back is stiff. Your mouth tastes like wool and iron. You shift your weight and sit up slowly, letting your joints register one by one with the usual creaks and complaints. Around you, the others begin to stir as well, their movements slow and jerky, as though the night did more damage than the raid. You reach for your boots, only to find they've frozen slightly overnight, not solid, but rigid enough to make you consider walking barefoot for half a second. You force them on anyway. There's no dignity in this life, only stubbornness. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a handful of dried berries and the last scraps of meat from the night before. One man crunches loudly on a frozen apple, shrugs, and mutters, "Still better than fish." You agree. No one talks much. They're conserving what little energy they have, because today's task is somehow worse than raiding. It's carrying the spoils back to camp. Every sack, barrel, and awkward object now has to be hauled across uneven terrain by people who haven't bathed in a week and walk like their knees are made of driftwood. You're handed a bronze pot filled with various trinkets, mostly bent jewelry, broken tools, and what you assume is some kind of ceremonial bowl now full of crumbs and seawater. It's heavier than it looks. They always are. You throw it over your shoulder with a grunt and join the line of trudging figures, each burdened with their own share of stolen glory. The path isn't even a real path. It's a half-cleared animal trail that loops through dense forest, up and down ridges slick with wet leaves and thick roots. Every step feels like a gamble. One misplaced foot and you're face first in mud with a sprained ankle and a crushed silver cup. The man in front of you slips twice in 10 minutes, swears both times, and then blames the bag for being cursed. "It's the Christian cross in here," he mutters. "Bad omen." You don't disagree. Your thighs burn, your arms ache, and your mind starts to drift into that quiet, tired place where you count steps not for distance, but for distraction. 20 steps, then 30, then 5 more. Just keep moving. That's all you can do. You pass a moss-covered boulder and realize you've been here before. On the way in, that's when it really hits you. This raid wasn't in some far-off land. It was just a few miles from the last shore. But those few miles felt like a world away when you were rowing in. Funny how geography bends around exhaustion. Historians still argue whether Viking raids were strategic or simply impulsive opportunities seized when weather and mood aligned. This one feels like a mix of both. Poorly planned, poorly executed, and barely survived. But successful. Technically, the loot exists, the village burns. Therefore, victory. An hour into the march, the strap on your bag snaps. Of course it does. The pot clatters to the ground, spilling its contents 2 small goblets, a rusted brooch, a carved wooden spoon. You stare at it all, half expecting the earth to swallow them up so you can just move on. No such luck. With a sigh, you kneel, gather the items one by one, and secure them in your cloak instead. You tie the ends together and hoist the whole mess over your shoulder again. It presses into your collarbone like a punishment. Ahead, the line keeps moving. No one waits. No one offers help. That's not cruelty. It's just survival. You finally crest a hill and see the camp below tents, arranged like crooked teeth, smoke rising from a central fire, and a scattering of figures moving like ants with purpose. It's not home, but it's close enough. Your knees nearly buckle with relief. The descent is faster but no easier. Your legs move like wet ropes, unsteady and slow. At one point, you nearly tumble down a slope, only saving yourself by grabbing a tree branch that snaps in protest. You reach the bottom with a grunt and limp into the edge of camp, where others are already unloading their burdens into piles that will later be sorted, fought over, and distributed. You dump your cloak sack into the designated pile, wipe your hands on your tunic, and immediately regret it. They're covered in resin and something that smells like goat urine. You sit on a rock near the fire, stretching your back like an old man and wondering how many of your bones will forgive you. Around you, the camp buzzes with low activity, quiet voices, shifting shapes, the occasional clink of metal or creak of wood. The leader walks through, inspecting the loot, saying nothing, just nodding or grunting at intervals. You watch him pause at one bundle of necklace, gleaming faintly in the dim light. He picks it up, squints, then pockets it without comment. No one stops him. That's the hierarchy. That's the cut. Everyone knows. Later, the sorting begins. Items are counted, weighed, and laid out like offerings. A few elders from the camp arrive to observe, their presence less about authority and more about ceremony. They represent the idea of order, even if the reality is far messier. Arguments begin. Softly at first, questions about who brought what, who carried which bag, who risked more. These debates never end cleanly. You don't join in. You sit back, sip something warm from a shared cup. It might be watered ale, or just murky rainwater, and listen. Your name gets mentioned once, then brushed past. Fine by you. Less attention means fewer expectations. One man starts shouting, loud, pointing at another, accusing him of hiding a silver chain. A crowd forms, voices rise. You hear the word coward thrown like a stone, then a punch, then another. It turns into a scuffle, bodies crashing into the loot pile, scattering coins and carved bowls across the dirt. It's broken up quickly, but the tension doesn't leave. It just simmers under the surface, like everything else in this life. You think about what you learned today, that even silver weighs differently when it's earned through smoke and screaming, that carrying a pot is sometimes harder than lifting a sword, that fire, while dramatic, is mostly just dangerous and unpredictable. You stand slowly and walk to the edge of camp, past the tents, to where the trees begin again. You need a moment, just a moment without voices. You stare into the woods, hands resting on your belt, mind somewhere between exhaustion and something like sorrow. Not deep sorrow, not the kind that paralyzes, just a low throb of quiet disappointment that this is what life turned out to be. You try to remember why you started this path. Was it gold glory? Or just fear of being left behind? You're not sure anymore. Maybe it was the promise that somewhere along the line, you'd feel powerful. All you feel now is tired. You take a deep breath. The air's cool, cleaner than the village smoke, tinged with pine and wet moss. You let it fill your lungs, then exhale slowly, like you're trying to let go of something. But it stays. It always stays. You turn back toward the camp, where the fire flickers and voices echo like ghosts. Your shift on watch is coming. There's always a shift. You steel yourself to go back, because that's what you do. You don't celebrate. You don't mourn. You just continue. You're given second watch, which is somehow worse than first or last. Too early to sleep deeply beforehand, too late to find rest after. So instead, you drift in and out of shallow awareness until someone kicks your foot and grunts. Your turn. No names, no greetings, just the exchange of duty, like passing a splintered baton in a race that never ends. You sit up, bones protesting the motion, and fumble for your cloak. It's cold again, colder than yesterday, and sharp enough that even the fire's warmth feels fragile. You rise, sling your sword over one shoulder, and step out into the dark perimeter of the camp. The trees are close, the night wind threaded with whispers and creaks, and every sound carries a question. Was that a branch shifting or a step? An animal or something less explainable? You walk the edge of the clearing slowly, boots soft in pine needles and damp loam, eyes scanning the tree line for signs of movement. You feel like a child again, afraid of shadows you can't name. Only now you carry a weapon and pretend the fear is gone. You pass another watchman and nod. He doesn't speak, just holds his spear close and stares into the woods like he's waiting for a god or a ghost to come explain something. You don't ask what. Everyone has their own private silence out here, and it's best not to intrude. You keep walking, tracing the line where the campfire's glow gives way to forest gloom. After a while, your steps become rhythm. Your breath fogs in the cold air, and your mind starts to wander not to heroic thoughts, but to little things. The tightness in your boot, the way your belt keeps riding up on your left side, the itch behind your knee you can't quite scratch without looking ridiculous. You focus on those details because anything else is too much. An owl calls from the trees. You freeze for a second, then relax. Just a bird. You almost chuckle. Imagine dying in battle and ending up in Valhalla, only to admit you were spooked by an owl. But then again, dying doesn't seem glorious when your feet are blistered and your stomach's empty. It just seems inconvenient. Historians still argue whether Vikings feared death or welcomed it, and you suspect the truth depends entirely on how recently they've eaten. You haven't, so tonight, you'll be clinging to life like it owes you a favor. You walk a little further, adjusting your cloak against the breeze, and try not to think about how little sleep you've had in the past 2 days. Your body is functioning purely on the stubborn insistence not to collapse in front of your peers. You eventually return to the fire, where 2 others have joined the night watch, one dozing lightly and the other poking at the embers with a kind of expression people wear when trying to look busy. You sit down next to them, rubbing your hands together, watching the sparks swirl upward like tiny warnings. No one speaks for a long time. Then, finally, the one with the stick says, "Back in the village, I saw a boy, maybe 8, just standing there. Didn't run, didn't cry, just looked at me like he knew what would happen." The words hang in the air. You nod slowly. You don't say you saw him too. You don't say you can still see his face. You don't need to. It's already understood. Someone tosses a log onto the fire. It catches quickly, illuminating your faces for a brief, too honest moment. Everyone looks older than they did a week ago. Lines where there weren't lines. Shadows under eyes that didn't used to sag. It's the kind of aging that doesn't come from years, but from seeing something you didn't want to. You lean back, resting your weight on your elbows, and stare up at the trees overhead. The branches sway gently, black against the darker sky, and you imagine what it would be like to just vanish into them. No more raiding, no more rowing, just pine and quiet. Then someone farts, and the spell breaks. A tired laugh circles the fire. That's how it is out here, brief moments of reflection, punctuated by body sounds and jokes that barely qualify as humor. As the fire dies down, your shift winds to an end. You're relieved by a gruff man who smells like wet leather and coughs every third breath. You nod and head back to your spot by the tent. But sleep doesn't come easy. Your body is sore, your thoughts louder now that everything else is quiet, and even the wind seems to be asking questions. You lie on your back, staring at the dim fabric above you, and wonder why none of this feels like a victory. You survived. You brought back loot. The village burned, but instead of triumph, there's only a strange hollowness, like winning a game you never wanted to play in the first place. You shift onto your side and curl up, trying to shrink away from the cold and your own mind. It doesn't work. Morning arrives, not with sunlight, but with a dull gray haze and the sharp jab of someone nudging your ribs. Up, they say, time to move. You groan, stretch, and rise. You pack your things quickly, what little there is, and prepare to leave again. The next destination is still unclear. Another village. A meeting point, or maybe just a forest clearing, where someone once saw a star-shaped stone and decided it meant something. You don't ask. You follow. That's the rule. One foot after the other. You join the column of men and begin the march. Boots dragging, shoulders hunched. The trees crowd around you again, damp and whispering. The air smells of wet bark and crushed leaves. You breathe it in, and it tastes like everything you can't forget. The path winds and narrows. You pass a stream, icy and shallow, and pause to splash water on your face. It shocks you into alertness, but only briefly. Ahead, someone stumbles. No one helps. He gets up on his own. That's the unspoken agreement. Everyone falls. Everyone gets up. No exceptions. You march on, legs aching, vision blurred by fatigue and monotony. At one point, you hear humming. Not a song you know, not even a melody. Just a sound someone's making to keep from going mad. You focus on it, use it like a rope, and keep walking. By midday, if that's what it is, you reach a new clearing. This one's different. No tents, just stones. Some carved, some scattered. All half sunken into the moss. A burial ground, maybe, or a sacred site. One of the older men removes his helmet and bows his head. The others follow. You do too. Not because you believe, but because you need a moment of silence that doesn't feel like defeat. The wind hushes, the forest stills. For a few breaths, it feels like something matters. Then a bird shrieks overhead and the moment breaks. Helmets go back on. The march resumes. Later, you'll tell someone that this part was the hardest, not the battle, not the weight of the loot, but the constant walking through places that didn't belong to you, with memories you didn't ask to carry. You'll say it quietly, maybe while drunk, and then laugh like you're joking. But right now, as your foot slips on another wet root and your shoulder throbs beneath the straps of your pack, you know it's true. This isn't about conquest. It's about endurance. The ability to keep moving forward, even when you're not sure what's left to move toward. You press on, through trees that blur together, past stones that don't care who walks beside them. You don't talk, you don't pray, you just keep going. Because that's what raiders do. They leave, they return, they leave again, and somewhere in between, they try to remember who they were before they started burning down other people's mornings. You lose track of how long you've been walking, maybe hours, maybe years, because time out here isn't measured in minutes, but in how many aches you collect before the next break. The forest keeps going, like it's grown overnight just to mess with your sense of progress. You don't talk anymore. No one does. The group has dissolved into a shuffling procession of half-bent figures too drained to pretend they're warriors right now. Even the braggarts are quiet. Every step feels mechanical, one foot in front of the other, driven not by purpose, but by sheer refusal to collapse. You swatted a bug, and it feels like an event, something new. That's how stripped down your world has become: walking, pain, and the occasional insect. The path curves slightly, and you see a fallen log ahead. Without speaking, 3 of you gravitate toward it, drop your gear, and sit. No one needs to say why. You're all thinking the same thing: blisters, exhaustion, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to breathe. You take off your boots. It's a terrible idea, but you do it anyway. The smell is immediate. It could wake the dead. You wince as you peel the leather away from your feet and see the damaged raw skin, angry red welts, and a particularly nasty blister on your heel that looks ready to declare independence. One of the others laughs, pointing to his own foot, which somehow looks worse. Battle scars, he jokes, and you both chuckle. Not because it's funny, but because it hurts less than silence. You poke at your blister with a stick. It doesn't pop. You take that as a sign of something resilience. Maybe, or just bad luck. You lean back against the log and close your eyes, letting the wind whisper through the trees like a lullaby sung by someone who never quite learned the tune. Then, because the gods have a sense of humor, it starts to rain. Not a storm, just that slow, steady drizzle that soaks through your clothes without making enough noise to justify the misery. You scramble to get your boots back on, swearing softly as the wet leather bites your already damaged feet. The others groan and stand, pulling cloaks tighter, adjusting hoods that offer no real protection. The march begins again, slower now, each step punctuated by the rhythmic squelch of soaked socks. You pass under dripping branches and try to ignore the water running down the back of your neck. You fail. Everything is damp. Everything is heavy. Even the air. The ground turns to muck. Each step is a negotiation, a gamble against slipping and falling face first into nature's version of humiliation. One man behind you does exactly that. He goes down hard, curses colorfully, and flings mud with his hands like he's trying to fight the earth itself. No one helps him. He gets up alone, wipes his face, and keeps walking. That's the rhythm of the raid. Fall, rise, repeat. Your own pace becomes a kind of meditation. Left foot, right foot, pain in the hip, cramp in the calf. Try not to think about how much further it might be. Try not to think about anything. Eventually, mercifully, you reach a clearing. Not a camp, not a village, just a flat patch of earth, with a few stunted trees and a crooked boulder that someone immediately claims as a seat. The leader calls a halt with a gesture, no speech, just a hand in the air. That's all it takes. You drop your gear, stretch your back, and collapse onto a patch of moss that squelches under your weight. It's the most comfortable thing you've felt in days. You close your eyes. You don't sleep, but you drift. That strange middle state where dreams nibble at the edges of consciousness, but don't fully pull you under. You see flashes smoke, see, the boy in the woods, the goat, always the goat. Someone nearby is talking about his toes. 3 are black, he says proudly, like he's winning a game no one wanted to play. Another says his knee clicks now. Someone else talks about his shoulder not lifting past a certain angle. It's a strange kind of bonding, trading damage like trophies. You think about your own injuries, both visible and not, and decide not to share. You're not in the mood for sympathy or one-upmanship. You just want to sit here, in the rain, on a mossy patch of earth that doesn't ask questions. But rest never lasts. It's time to move again. The leader gives the signal, and the group groans in collective protest before obeying. You rise slowly, body complaining in 100 small ways, and sling your pack over your shoulder. It feels heavier than before. Maybe someone slipped something into it. Maybe you're just losing strength. Either way, you keep moving, through more trees, more mud, more rain. At one point, the path narrows so much that everyone walks single file. You find yourself behind the man who smells like wet cheese and regret. You try to breathe through your mouth. That's when you step on something sharp. You yelp, stumble, and fall against a tree. Everyone stops. You pull off your boot and find a jagged bone shard lodged in the sole. Not deep, but enough to bleed. You wrap it in cloth, grit your teeth, and wave the others on. Fine. You mutter, just stupid. One man pats your back and says, could have been worse. Could have been your other foot. You don't laugh. You just nod and hobble forward. Every step now a small act of defiance against the forest, the gods, and whatever unlucky spirit left that bone in your path. Eventually, mercifully, you arrive. Not home, not even close, but a waypoint, a larger camp near the coast where others are already gathered, cooking, sharpening weapons, bartering over spoils. It's noisy, busy, familiar in a way that makes you feel both safe and more tired than ever. You drop your gear near a tent and sit. Someone hands you a bowl of something vaguely warm. You eat without asking what it is. Probably root vegetables and seawater. Doesn't matter. It's food. You finish it. You don't thank them. They don't ask. That night, as you lie on a bed of reeds under a sagging tarp, you stare at the flickering shadows on the fabric above. Your feet throb. Your hand is still wrapped from earlier, and your stomach is finally full enough to let you relax. Almost. The camp is alive with sounds, laughter, shouting, someone strumming a crude stringed instrument and singing a verse about a girl who kissed a raider and then ran off with his shoes. You close your eyes, smiling faintly. Then you hear the soft creak of someone sitting nearby. Couldn't sleep either, they ask. You grunt, trying. They nod. Tomorrow. They want to hit another village. Of course they do. You don't answer. You just lie there, listening to the rain start again on the tarp overhead, and wonder how long this can keep going. How many villages? How many aches? How many nights under makeshift shelters pretending you're not falling apart? You don't know the answer. You just know you'll be there, sword in hand, feet full of blisters, chasing silver and stories you don't even believe anymore. But what else is there? You turn on your side, curl tighter into your cloak, and let the rhythm of the rain try to rock you towards sleep, even as your mind keeps marching through every step you've taken to get here. You rise before dawn, not because anyone tells you to, but because your body has learned that sleep is fragile and usually ends with the sound of someone retching, shouting, or sharpening steel near your ear. Today it's the last one, a slow, rasping draw of blade on whetstone, methodical and patient, as if the metal itself is trying to wake you. You blink into the murky half-light, unsure of the hour, and prop yourself up on one elbow. The tarp above you flutters slightly with the wind, dripping cold rainwater from a sag in the fabric. You shift your weight, careful not to move too fast, because everything hurts and you've learned that sudden motion only invites regret. A dull ache pulses in your lower back, the price of sleeping on reeds with a bundle of stolen rags for a pillow. You reach for your boots and find them soaked again, no surprise. Nothing stays dry anymore. You slide them on with a grunt and emerge into the world that barely looks different from the one you fell asleep in. Same gray sky, same cold air, same men moving through the camp like tired ghosts rehearsing a dance no one remembers learning. You hear murmurs of another raid, different village. Same promises. Rich land, weak defenses. Should be easy, someone says, which is exactly what they said last time. You look at him. He's missing an ear and walks with a limp, but somehow still manages to sound optimistic. You envy that, or maybe you just don't understand it. Either way, you nod and move toward the fire pit, where a few embers still glow beneath a pile of wet ash. Someone stokes them, coaxing reluctant flames back to life. A pot of something questionable hangs over it. You don't ask what's in it. You just hold out your bowl and wait. The man ladling it out shrugs and says, "Could be oats. Could be moss." You smile faintly. Long as it's warm, it's not. But you pretend anyway. That's what mornings are for now, pretending you're ready. You're halfway through your meal, if gray mush counts as a meal, when someone calls out from the beach. You stand, brush your hands off, and follow the others toward the sound. The longship is there, same as always. Moored just off the shore, gently rocking with the tide like it's eager to leave again. A few of the crew are gathered around it, staring out at the water. You squint, trying to see what they see. Then it hits you. The anchor line is slack. The ship's drifting, not far, but enough. You curse under your breath and start running, boots slipping on wet stones. Several others do the same. The water is ice cold as it soaks your leggings, climbing quickly to your knees. The current pulls, subtle but firm, and the longship dances just out of reach like a child playing cruel games. You wade deeper, grab at the side, and miss. Behind you, someone shouts instructions no one follows. Another man manages to get a rope to stick. You all heave, breath misting in the cold morning air, dragging the ship inch by agonizing inch back to shore. By the time you've hauled it in and secured it properly, your fingers are numb, your arms are shaking, and your cloak is heavy with seawater. You stand there, chest heaving, staring at the boat like it insulted your family. One of the older raiders claps your shoulder. "Could have lost it," he mutters. "Would have been a fine end to a glorious campaign." You laugh, a single sharp exhale that feels more like a cough. "Would have saved us the next one," you say. And he grins. You're not wrong. You both watch the ship for a moment longer, then turn and slog back toward camp, boots squelching with each step. Later, as you sit drying your socks by the fire, the leader calls everyone together. No grand speech, just a map scratched into the dirt with a stick, and a few curt instructions: sail north, land near the inlet, strike fast, leave faster, the usual. You study the markings as if they mean something, but all you see is mud and chance. Still, you nod when he looks at you. Everyone does. That's how raids begin, not with a plan, but with enough agreement to row in the same direction. You gather your gear again, your limbs stiff and uncooperative. The pot you're assigned this time contains tools, hammers, wedges, nails. Not loot, just weight. You strap it to your back and tell yourself it builds character. But what it builds more reliably is back pain. By midday, you're pushing off once more. The sky has cleared slightly, revealing a stretch of the pale blue above the clouds. The wind is steady, and for once, the sea is calm. You take your seat, wrap your hands around the oar, and begin to row. The rhythm returns faster than expected. Your body remembers this movement, even if your mind resents it. The strokes are smoother now, less desperation, more resignation. You fall into it, breathing in sync with the pull, staring at the horizon like it might blink first. You notice things you didn't last time. The sound of water slipping past the hull, the creak of the oarlocks, the low hum some men make when they row a tuneless drone that somehow keeps them sane. You hum with them, not because you want to, but because silence is worse. Hours pass, the coastline changes, hills rise, trees cluster closer to the shore. Then the call comes. Land ahead. You squint and see it too. A scattering of buildings, a plume of smoke, The glint of something metallic on a fence post. No guards. But that means nothing. Could be they're hiding. Could be they're gone. Could be they're waiting. You brace yourself, pull in your oar, grab your shield, and prepare to disembark. The ship coasts in. You hit the beach with more grace this time, though your knees still jar painfully as you jump into the surf. You run, not because you're brave, but because standing still makes you a target. Your boots hit the dry earth. You move past the first hut, no resistance, just the echo of your own breath in your helmet. Then a rooster screams. You freeze. A chicken flutters past. It's a strange kind of déjà vu. You swing wide around the next corner, sword drawn, and find a man crouched behind a barrel, holding a pitchfork. He looks terrified. You are too, but you don't swing. You just stare. Then someone behind you shouts, charges in, and the moment breaks. The pitchfork man runs. You don't follow. You just keep walking. Boots crunching over dry straw, smoke in your nostrils again. You enter a hut, find it empty, find a bowl of still warm soup on the hearth, and feel something strange in your stomach. Not hunger, not fear, something else. You turn back outside and wonder why didn't they fight. Later, when the raiding ends and the sun begins to lower behind the hills, you sit beside a well and stare into its dark mouth. You drop nothing in it, no coin, no prayer, just a glance. But still, it stares back, like it's seen 1,000 faces like yours before. You sit there longer than you mean to. Someone calls you. You rise, pick up your bag, and follow the voices. You don't speak. You don't need to. The story tells itself every time. The march back from this village is quieter than the last. You'd think that strange, considering there were no injuries, no blood spilled, no resistance at all. But somehow, that silence, the kind you met in every hut and corner, clings to you more stubbornly than smoke or salt ever did. It wasn't a raid. It was an eerie collection, a walking inventory. You took what you wanted, sure, but no one tried to stop you. Most of the homes were already half abandoned, meals left unfinished, blankets folded neatly, as if the inhabitants had packed for a journey somewhere you'd never understand. A few muttered theories floated among the men plague. Maybe, or a warning sent ahead from the last raid, but no one knew for sure. Historians still debate how much warning spread between villages, whether people fled at the first rumor or stayed, hoping to be spared. Today suggests they left before you arrived, which should be a blessing. Instead, it sits in your chest like a stone. As you trudge through the forest once again, carrying more trinkets and foodstuffs and an absurd amount of rope, you can't shake the image of a still warm fire beside an empty stool. It's harder to justify taking from the living when they're not there to defend it. Someone behind you starts singing. Not a proper song, just a drawn-out series of vowels that echo weirdly through the trees. A few others pick up the sound, and soon the line of raiders sounds like a chant of the wind itself. You don't join in. Your throat's too dry, and your heart isn't in it. You focus on the weight of the bag slung across your shoulders, and the way your feet sink half an inch into the mud with every step. The trail is longer this time, or maybe it just feels that way. You try to distract yourself by counting the steps between roots, by naming every tree you can remember, by thinking about what you'll do when this all ends. But that's the thing, this doesn't end. It just pauses. There's always another village, another march, another fire that won't be lit by its rightful owner. You reach a stream around midday and stop to refill water skins. The water is cold and clear, and when you kneel to drink, it stings your teeth and gums with freshness. You splash some on your face, rub your eyes, and sit back on a flat rock. Others gather nearby, some dipping their boots in, some arguing over who gets what from the latest haul. You tune it out. You focus on the rush of the stream, the way it carves through stone and root like it's got somewhere to be. You envy it. Even the water has purpose. You think about your own. Is it just to carry, to swing, to burn, or is there something else? Something under all this grime and habit that you forgot long ago. After the break, the group moves faster. Maybe because the path is clearer now, or maybe because everyone's eager to get the goods back to camp and off their aching shoulders. You pass landmarks you recognize: crooked trees, a mossy stump shaped like a twisted face, the remains of an old campsite you swear you've seen before. The repetition is oddly comforting. In a life of chaos, there's something soothing about the sameness of the forest. Even the mud is familiar. It has the same suction, the same passive-aggressive way of pretending to be solid until you trust it. You don't anymore. Every step is a negotiation. Every slip a reminder that gravity is undefeated. Back at camp, the unloading begins immediately. You drop your sack near the others, stretch your arms, and flex your fingers. They cramp. You rub them gently and move toward the fire pit. Where someone's already cooking, you sit on a log, stare into the flames, and listen. The others are louder now, relaxed in that post-raid way that comes when no one has to bury anyone. They talk about the haul, mostly food, some tools, a few coins. One man laughs about finding a jar of honey and eating half of it on the walk back. Another claims to have pocketed a ring from under a mattress. You don't care. You're too tired to join in, and your stomach's still twisting from the thought of that empty house with the stew still steaming. As the sun begins to lower behind the trees, casting long, lazy shadows across the clearing, you head down to the shore. The longship is moored, swaying gently. You walk slowly along the sand, letting the cool wind dry your sweat and clear your head. The waves lap softly, each one a quiet reminder that no matter what you do, the sea will always be waiting. You sit near the waterline, pull off your boots, and let your feet feel the cold. The sting is immediate, but you welcome it. Pain is honest. The numbness that follows even more so. You lean back on your elbows and watch the clouds. They drift the same direction you came from. You wonder if the villagers are watching them too, from somewhere deeper inland, safe for now. You wonder if they're rebuilding or just hiding, or if they're watching you from a distance, waiting for you to leave. You return to camp after dusk, your boots squelching slightly. The fire is bigger now, the group more animated. Someone's telling a story, embellished with gestures and grunts, about a phantom hound that chased them through the trees. It's clearly fake, but no one calls it out. Stories are currency here, truth less valuable than entertainment. You sit, take the bowl handed to you, and eat without asking what it is. Warm, vaguely meaty. That's enough. As you chew, you listen not just to the words, but to the tone, the relief, the exhaustion, the strange camaraderie that only forms between people who've seen the same firelight flicker off blood and bronze. You're not friends, not really, but you've suffered in the same mud, and that counts for something. After the meal, someone pulls out a drum, just a small one, worn from use, the hide stretched and retied more times than anyone remembers. He begins to tap it softly, the rhythm slow and steady. Others join in with claps, boots, the occasional whistle. You find yourself nodding along, eyes half closed. The music isn't good, but it's real. It's something made here, now, by people who've forgotten how to smile with their whole faces, but still remember how to keep a beat. You close your eyes fully, just for a moment. Let the rhythm sink into your skin. When the music fades and the fire dies down, you find your spot again near the edge of camp. You lie back, look up, and see stars. Not many, but enough. Tiny lights in a sky too big to comprehend. You think about the boy with the stick, the goat, the empty chair. You think about your hands and how they don't feel like yours anymore. You think about home, if that's still a word that means anything. And you think about the longship waiting, watching, always pointing toward the next thing. You wonder what tomorrow will ask of you. Probably more than you want to give, but you'll give it, because that's what you do. By morning, the fire has died and your body feels like a creaky cart. Someone forgot to oil joints stiff, muscles sore in new places, and the faint but undeniable scent of damp wool clinging to your every breath. You sit up slowly, stretching until your spine makes an unfortunate sound, and blink at the pale fog curling through the camp. It's the kind of mist that makes everything look half real, like the world hasn't quite decided whether to exist yet. You pull on your boots, still wet despite your best efforts to dry them. and trudge toward the central pit where a few embers glow weakly beneath a blackened pot. The stew has been reheated again, now reduced to a kind of gray porridge with the occasional fish scale drifting in it like a forgotten memory. You eat anyway. It's warm, and warmth is gold. Around you, others move with the same slow reluctance, scratching beards, rolling shoulders, inspecting their weapons like the day might suddenly require heroism. Spoiler, it won't. Not today. Today is for repair, restocking, and readiness, which in Raider terms means everything you hate but have to do. You're sent to inspect the ship. Of course you are. Not because you're good at it, but because someone remembered you didn't complain last time. That's how assignments work here, not merit. Just memory and momentum. You sigh, pick up your gear, and head down to the shore, boots crunching across gravel still slick with sea mist. The longship rests half in the water, half on land, like a sleeping animal unsure whether to wake or roll over. You walk its length, running your hand along the wood, checking the seams, testing the lashings. One of the oarlocks is cracked. You make a note. A small section near the prow has started to splinter. Another note, nothing fatal, but enough to make you wish you had tools, materials, and time 3 things you rarely get in the same place. Still, you work with what you have. You fetch a mallet, a handful of iron nails, and set about reinforcing what you can. It's not glamorous, it's not glorious, but it might stop the sea from eating your bones later, so you do it. As you hammer, you hear footsteps behind you. You glance back. It's the boy with the carved bear, the youngest in the crew. He doesn't speak, just watches for a moment, then hands you a piece of wood. It's been whittled into a tiny fish, rough but recognizable. Figured the ship should have something that floats. He says, deadpan. You stare at it. Then you laugh, genuinely. For once, you take the fish, nod your thanks, and lash it near the bow with a scrap of cord. It flaps awkwardly in the wind, completely useless and somehow perfect. The boy smiles and walks away without another word. You go back to work, hammering the nail in place with a little more rhythm than before. When you finish, you sit on the sand and look out at the water. The tide's coming in slowly, like it's unsure if it's welcome. You watch the horizon, the way it wavers slightly in the morning haze. Somewhere out there is your next destination. Another coastline, another village, another group of strangers who won't understand why their lives have to be unmade for your crew to keep theirs going. You reach into your pouch and pull out a small object, an iron ring you found yesterday in that abandoned hut. It's plain, slightly bent, and too small for your fingers. You don't know why you kept it. You don't wear rings. Maybe it reminded you of something, or someone. You hold it in your palm, then quietly toss it into the sea. The splash is barely a sound, but it ripples. You return to camp just as a quarrel breaks out over food. Apparently, someone took more than their share of dried meat, and now 2 others are threatening to gut him. The accused denies it, swearing he gave half to someone else who's currently asleep. The leader intervenes with a single growl. It's enough. No one wants a fight over food. Not really. Not when everyone's still sore from yesterday, and the stew tastes like regret. They back down, for now. You sidestep the mess and sit by the fire, sharpening your blade out of habit more than need. The edge is fine. You just need something to do. Around you, men repair torn gear, oil cracked leather, rewrap handles. One sings softly to himself a lullaby. Strangely enough, you don't ask. Everyone has something they're holding on to. By midday, the fog lifts, revealing more coastline and the far-off outline of hills. Someone suggests scouting inland, just in case there's something useful or someone watching. You volunteer before you realize what you're doing. Maybe because you'd rather be walking than waiting. Maybe because you want to be away from the tension brewing in the camp. You grab your cloak, your knife, and your quiet, and head into the trees with 2 others. The forest greets you with silence and dampness, every branch dripping last night's rain onto your head at the worst possible moments. The path is barely a path, just a suggestion made by deer or long-forgotten boots. You walk for what feels like hours, though it's probably less. You find a stream, a few half-buried animal traps, and a curious circle of stones that might be sacred or might just be stones. One of your companions spits on it, just to be sure. You move on. Eventually, you spot signs of human presence, faint tracks, a bit of broken pottery, the smell of wood smoke carried on the wind. You stop. The others look at you. You consider going closer, then you don't. There's no need. Whoever's there knows how to stay hidden, and you're not here to finish what didn't start. You turn back. By the time you return to camp, the mood has settled. The food argument is forgotten, replaced by a new topic the next raid. Some suggest heading south, others north. Everyone has a reason. Better loot, fewer soldiers, easier rowing. You listen, but don't speak. Your thoughts are elsewhere. You're watching the sky again, the way the clouds gather like whispers just above the treetops. You're thinking about that abandoned ring, the carved fish, the boy with the pitchfork. You're thinking about how raiding changes you not in one grand transformation, but in slow erosion, like a stone in the surf. Bit by bit, something wears away. You're not sure what's left beneath. Evening falls. The wind shifts, bringing with it the scent of pine and distant firewood. Someone starts telling a story, an older man, grizzled, voice like gravel. He talks about a raid from 10 years ago, where they found a hidden shrine filled with gold and curses. Half the crew died. He laughs at that part. Worth it, he says. Mostly. You smile politely, but your eyes drift to the fire. The flames are low now, flickering just enough to keep the shadows guessing. You wonder how many of those old stories are true, or if they're just what you tell yourself to justify another day of carrying things that don't belong to you. Later, as you settle into your cloak for sleep, you hear someone humming again, the same lullaby. You close your eyes. The sound wraps around the camp like a thread holding frayed cloth together, and in that soft, almost forgotten melody, you feel something you haven't in a long time. Not comfort, not safety, but the memory of them, of those things, just enough to remember what you're missing. When the next morning comes, you open your eyes before the first voice rises, before the crackle of fire or the crunch of boots signals that another day is demanding your attention. The sky is barely light, just a pale smear above the trees, and the camp still breathes with that quiet rhythm of sleeping bodies spread across dirt and stone. You lie still for a few moments, staring at the tattered roof of your shelter, listening to the wind nudge through pine boughs and the distant call of a bird whose name you never learned. Your muscles throb dully, no longer protesting as loudly as they did days ago, just a constant background ache, like your body's learned to whisper its suffering instead of shout. When you do finally rise, your legs respond slowly, not with resistance, but with resignation. You wash your face in cold water from a wooden basin, scrape your teeth clean with a pine twig, and chew a strip of dried meat that tastes like salt and patience. By the time the camp stirs around you, you're already packed. Ready for what? You're not sure, but it feels wrong to be idle. You've grown used to motion even when you hate it. The plan today isn't another raid. Not yet. It's the less glamorous part of this life, carrying spoils back to the main camp, deeper inland, where traders wait with shifty eyes and open palms. You'll be paid, if you're lucky, cheated, more likely. But coins are coins, and silver doesn't argue. Your group is smaller this time, just 6 of you. Plus the ox cart borrowed from a coastal ally whose name no one bothers to remember. The cart's wheels groan before they even start moving, and the ox stares at everyone like it's personally offended. You load it slowly, careful not to tip the crates filled with anything fragile or valuable. The boy with the carved bear ties his figure to the cart's side, like a guardian or maybe just a joke. You give him a nod. He grins, too wide for this hour, and then you set off, feet hitting the same old dirt, boots digging into the same mud, the road a blur of forest greens and grays. The path isn't difficult, but it isn't kind either. Every rut and rock jolts the cart, sends a fresh wave of creaking through the wooden frame. One of the men walks beside it, muttering to the ox like it's his best friend or worst enemy. You're not sure which. Another hums that same lullaby again, soft and off-key, like it's more for the trees than for people. The rest of you just walk in silence, the kind that doesn't need breaking, The forest is thicker here, older, its trees tall and unbending, their roots curled around each other like secrets. Sunlight filters through in narrow beams that make the dust in the air look like spirits caught mid-flight. You keep your hand on your weapon, not because you expect trouble, but because the quiet makes you suspicious. And besides, something about these woods feels like it remembers things people have tried to forget. Halfway through the journey, the wheel catches on a rock and splits with a sickening crack. The cart lurches, the ox snorts, and everyone swears. You crouch to inspect it. The axle's fine, but the wheels toast a jagged break right through the wood. Can we fix it? Someone asks. Not because they expect good news, but because hope still tries his luck now and then. You shake your head. Not here. Not without tools. Silence follows. No one volunteers to carry the crates. You're too far to turn back, too close to stop, and too tired to think clearly. Eventually, the oldest of the group shrugs, says, "We split it. Carry what we can. Come back for the rest if it's still here." No one argues. You redistribute the load ropes, sacks, jars, bundles tied together with fraying leather. You sling a crate of dried herbs onto your back. It smells like sage and damp moss. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. Like everything lately, everything. The pace slows. What took 2 hours now stretches into 4. The straps dig into your shoulders. Your boots sink deeper with every mile. The ox follows behind, empty cart in tow. Its broken wheel thudding like a heartbeat out of sync. You stop only once, to drink from a stream and rest your backs. One man pulls off his boots and reveals toes blackened by blisters and damp. Another lights a pipe and smokes without speaking. You lie on a fallen log, staring at the canopy above, and wonder why this hurts more than the raid did. Maybe because the silence gives you space to think, and thinking is dangerous when you've been trying so hard not to. Eventually, you reach the camp. It's bigger than you remember, spread across a river bend with tents stitched in mismatched colors, and smoke drifting up from a dozen fires. Traders move between stalls like crows, eyes scanning for weakness. Children dart between legs, dogs bark at nothing. You unload your cargo and report to the quartermaster, a man with a scar that splits his lip and a voice like wet gravel. He grunts at the list, waves his hand, and throws you a bag of coins. You don't count them. You already know it's less than promised. You move aside, let the others haggle, argue, accuse. You've done your share. You want a drink? The mead hall here is built from old ships and broken promises. The walls lean inward, the roof leaks, and the benches groan beneath every seated soul. But the mead is warm and strong, and the woman who pours it doesn't ask questions. You down one cup, then another, and feel the warmth spread through your chest like a temporary lie. You eat bread that's too hard, meat that's too salty, and listen to the voices around you. Laughter, lies, boasts, confessions. One man claims he killed 3 defenders with a wooden spoon. Another insists he can read runes and saw death in the last set of entrails. You laugh when you're supposed to. You nod when it's expected. But your thoughts drift always back to the forest, the broken cart, the boys carve fish now somewhere along a road no one respects. You leave the hall as night falls. The sky's clear for once, stars glittering above like cold coins. You walk to the edge of camp and sit on a stump, staring at the fireflies flickering between trees. Your coin pouch is heavy on your belt, but it doesn't feel like success. Just wait. Another thing to carry. You think about what you'll spend it on. A new cloak, better boots, a bottle of something stronger than memory, probably all of it, and none of it will matter, because soon, someone will say there's another target, another ship to load, another fire to start, and you'll nod, because that's what you do. The wind picks up. It smells like pine and smoke and something older. You close your eyes, listening to the camp behind you, the clatter of dice, the stomp of feet, the crack of laughter. Life goes on, whether you want it to or not. You breathe in deep, and for just a moment, you imagine what it would be like to keep walking, past the tents, past the river, into the trees. Never stop. Just walk until the path ends, Or you do, but you don't move. You never do. You stand, stretch, and return to your tent. Tomorrow, someone will call your name, and you'll answer. By the time you're called again, the sun is already up and pretending it had nothing to do with yesterday. The camp is in its usual state of half-motion, men shuffling between tents, gear being packed with the enthusiasm of a hangover, and smoke curling out from fires lit not for warmth, but for routine. You wake groggy, your tongue dry as a salted fish, and the inside of your mouth tasting like someone chewed a pine branch and forgot to spit. You sit up, blink slowly, and rub your eyes with the back of your wrist. The world comes into focus one ache at a time. Someone tosses a bundle at your feet, a rolled cloak, fresh, or at least less filthy than the one you're wrapped in. You nod your thanks, roll it over your shoulder, and lace up your boots. They're still damp. Of course they are. You step outside your tent into a morning that smells like ash, wet wool, and body odor held together with traces of burnt onion. In the middle of it all stands the leader, arms folded, speaking low with two men while pointing to a charcoal map scratched on a wooden slab. The gesture is subtle, but unmistakable. Another raid, another walk into someone else's life with a sword and a bag. The whispers start before the orders do. Monastery. Someone says, south, close to the cliffs. You hear talk of silver, of relics, of no defenses, which is exactly what people said the last 3 times someone didn't come back. Still, no one protests. A few roll their eyes, others nod. Some look at the sky like they're hoping for a sign to fall out of it. Nothing does. Just a seagull shrieking in the distance like it's laughing at all of you. You're handed a shield and told to bring the crowbar again. That's your specialty now, prying open doors, crates, shrines, anything closed that looks like it might hold something people cared about. You never meant for it to become your thing, but here you are, the guy who breaks things. You don't ask when you leave, you just go. The journey south takes most of the day. The terrain shifts from forest to rock, the path narrowing as you near the cliffs. The air grows sharper, saltier. The wind begins to carry more questions than answers. You walk in a long, narrow line, the sea on one side, forest on the other, and a sky above that feels too large, too indifferent. Someone tries to start a song, but it dies within 3 verses. Your feet hit gravel, then stone, then a path carved by monks 100 years ago and half reclaimed by weeds. The monastery appears like it doesn't want to be seen. Stone walls barely taller than a man, nestled between 2 bluffs, quiet as a held breath. You crouch behind a thicket with the others and watch. No guards, no movement, just birds nesting in the eaves and a rope swinging lazily from a bell that hasn't rung in weeks. Too easy. Someone says, "That's the problem." Someone else mutters. Still, you move forward, not running, just walking, measured and ready. The gate's unlocked. You push it open with your foot. It creaks. You wince. No one greets you. No one flees. The courtyard is still, paved with cracked stone and littered with old leaves. You hear the sea crashing below, but nothing else. The silence grows teeth. Inside the chapel, the doors are shut. You move to them with 2 others, nod once, and jam the crowbar into the seam. The wood groans, then gives. It always does. That's the truth. People forget everything opens. Eventually, the door swings wide. The inside is darker than it should be, lit only by what light sneaks through the high, narrow windows. You step carefully, boots echoing on the stone floor, eyes adjusting, pews, candles, a statue of a man nailed to wood, his face too calm for what's happening to him. You don't make eye contact. You move to the altar. It's plain, unadorned, save for a small silver cross and a book that looks too old to touch. Someone grabs the cross. Another reaches for the candle holders. You step to a side room, break the lock with the bar, and find shelves of wine, robes, scrolls, and a wooden box with an iron latch. You take the box. It's heavier than expected. No key. Doesn't matter. You'll pry it later. You sling it into your bag and turn back. That's when the bell rings. Not loud, not frantic. Just one note, clear, precise, deliberate. Everyone freezes. Then chaos. Footsteps. Voices. The back gate slams open. From behind the stone wall, figures pour in, not soldiers, but villagers with clubs, tools, slings. Not well armed, but many. Someone throws a stone. It hits a man in the cheek. He drops. Another arrow flies. You raise your shield. The leader yells, "Out back to the cliffs." You don't need to be told twice. You run, ducking as more stones fly. A sling hits your shoulder with a thud, and your arm goes numb. You keep going. Through the gate, down the path. You hear shouting behind you, names, curses, maybe prayers. You don't look back. You reach the edge where the boats are hidden in a cove. Men already pushing them into the surf. You leap in as yours shoves off. The others follow, scrambling aboard as the villagers reach the edge of the cliff. Too late to follow, but not too late to curse. One of them throws a torch. It lands short, fizzles in the tide. You sit back, panting, shoulder throbbing, hands shaking. You don't speak. No one does. Not until the oars dip in and the rhythm returns. Stroke, breathe, stroke, breathe. You stare at the box in your lap. Still locked, still heavy. You think about the man who didn't make it back. His name was Bragi. You think, or maybe Bjorn. He had a wife. Maybe, you're not sure. Back at camp, you open the box. Inside cloth, a book, 2 rings, a carved bone figure of a saint. That's it. Nothing worth dying for, but someone did. You hold the figure up to the firelight. It's small, worn. The face has been rubbed smooth from years of handling. You pass it to the boy with the bear. He looks at it, nods, and sets it gently beside his bedroll. You don't ask why. You just watch the flames. That night, the wind shifts. You lie under your cloak and stare at the stars, wondering if they look different to those who live without the need to take. Probably not. Stars don't care who watches. They just burn. Above you, they flicker. Beside you, someone snores. In your chest, something stirs, not guilt, not quite, just the growing sense that this life, this rhythm of raid and return, is starting to echo, like you've been walking in a circle that looks different every time, only because you're more tired each lap. You close your eyes and try to sleep. Tomorrow, someone will ask what was in the box. You'll say, "Not much," and it will be true. Sleep doesn't last. It rarely does anymore, not because of noise or cold or even nightmares, but because your body's forgotten how to rest without flinching. When the sky begins to lighten, you're already awake, lying there with your hands folded on your chest like a man waiting to be buried. Around you, the camp stirs slowly, with the groans and rustles of the bodies rising from dirt and dreams. Someone coughs violently near the fire. Another man curses as he tries to stretch a leg that won't straighten. You sit up, bones creaking, cloak damp against your back. Your shoulder still aches where the sling stone struck you yesterday, deep and bruised, but not broken. You move it gently, testing its limits, then stand. It's time again. Not for war, or glory, or even silver, just the dull continuation of survival. You gather your gear, strap your sword to your side, and walk toward the fire pit, where someone is stirring a pot of what might be porridge, or might be despair made edible. It doesn't matter. You take your share, eat it slowly, and say nothing. The others are quieter today. The failed monastery raid hangs in the air like smoke that won't clear. No one speaks of the man left behind, but you can see him on every face, especially in the way no one meets your eye. It's a shared discomfort, not of guilt exactly, but of recognition. Everyone here knows the line is thin. One slip, one slower step, one unlucky moment, and it's your name that goes unsaid the next morning. The boy with the carved bear figure sits cross-legged near the edge of camp, running his fingers along the tiny saint from the box you brought back. You watch him for a moment. He seems older than yesterday, or maybe you're just seeing him more clearly. You turn away. Looking too long at anyone here is a kind of cruelty. It reminds you they're still human. You spend the morning sharpening tools and mending gear. Your hands go through the motions, but your mind drifts. You think of that quiet chapel, of the fire that never got lit, of the ringing bell that felt less like a warning and more like a judgment. You wonder who rang it. You wonder if they watched you run. You wonder why you didn't swing your sword that day. Maybe you didn't want to. Maybe something in that place, its emptiness, its stillness felt more alive than you did. Historians still argue whether Vikings respected Christian holy sites or simply saw them as softer targets. In practice, the truth is more complicated. You don't remember your first raid as clearly as you thought you would, but you remember the sound of a child crying in a burning hut. You remember a man hiding behind a grain cart. You remember what you didn't do, and sometimes that's louder than what you did. Midday brings word from the higher camp orders to move north. Not a raid, not yet, just scouting. You're chosen, of course. You always are, not because you're the best, but because you don't argue. You pack light, sling a water pouch over your shoulder, and follow the 4 others assigned to the task. The boy comes too, no longer the smallest, but still the youngest. He walks behind you, quiet, focused. You don't ask why he was picked. No one ever explains these things. You just go. The trail is narrow, climbing uphill through thick brush and rock. Your legs burn, but you keep going. The wind whistles low through the trees, carrying with it the scent of moss and damp earth. A raven follows you for a while, hopping between branches overhead. You don't like that. Birds that linger usually mean omens or stories, and you've had enough of both. After 2 hours, you reach a ridge that overlooks a valley lush and green, with scattered signs of life, smoke rising from one house, a field partially tilled. You crouch with the others, watching in silence. One man notes the layout, another sketches it on a flat stone with charcoal. You squint at the details, fewer huts, but sturdier. A stone wall, low but thick. No obvious guard, no livestock visible. Could be a poor target, could be bait. You suggest waiting a day to see what moves. The others agree. You make camp higher up the ridge, sheltered by a curve in the stone. The fire is small, the conversation even smaller. You eat dried meat, drink bitter water, and try to stretch your legs without cursing. The boy whittles again, this time working on something you can't identify. It looks like a wolf, or maybe a wave. You say nothing. He carves for the same reason you sharpen your sword. Not because it's useful, but because it's something your hands understand. The night is cold. The fire barely keeps you warm. You take second watch, sitting beside a boulder while the stars blink overhead like eyes that never close. You listen to the forest breathe, the crack of twigs, the distant rustle of leaves. Your sword lies across your lap. You don't feel heroic. You feel like a man holding a piece of metal because he's forgotten how not to. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a fox bark, then silence again. You wait for the dawn like you wait for everything now with no expectations. Just endurance. When the sun finally rises, it's not dramatic. Just a paler shade of gray pushed upward by obligation. You break camp, descend back to the valley overlook. No changes, same smoke, same stillness. You agree to move on. Let someone else raid this place later. Maybe when you've forgotten how tired you are. The walk back is downhill. Easier on the legs, but harder on the spirit. You pass a patch of wildflowers growing out of a cleft in the stone. The boy stops to pick one. You want to tell him not to. You don't. He tucks it into his belt and keeps walking. You keep moving, trying not to think about how rare it is to see something beautiful that doesn't bleed when touched. When you return to camp, the others are already preparing for something else. You're not told what yet, but you recognize the signs. Armor being checked, arrows counted, boats inspected. It's always the same rhythm. Rest, load, burn, retreat. You drop your pack, stretch your arms, and sit by the fire. Someone hands you a piece of bread. It's stale, but it's food. You chew it slowly, listening to the sound of a hammer striking metal somewhere behind the tents. The blacksmith works without pause, reshaping bent nails and dented buckles into something vaguely functional. You watch the sparks fly. You remember what it felt like to be one of them new, eager, sharp-edged. That version of you is gone, not dead, just dulled. Later, As the sun begins to sink behind the treetops, you see the boy again. He set his carving down beside the fire, a crude wolf, tongue out, front paw raised mid-stride. He notices you looking and shrugs. Saw one once, he says. You nod. What happened? He smiles faintly. It ran. You chuckle once, then look away. In your mind, you see a monk with a bell rope in his hand, a man behind a pitchfork, a woman cradling an empty pot, and a boy, carving figures because no one told him not to. You wonder what he'll become. You wonder if he'll remember your name. Then you shake your head. You've been thinking too much again. You stand, wipe your hands on your cloak, and head toward your tent. Tomorrow, someone will shout. Tomorrow, someone will bleed. And you will pick up your sword not because you want to, but because that's what the day will ask. And you, like always, will answer. When the shout finally comes, it's not loud or frantic. It's the kind of call that cuts through the morning air not by force, but by familiarity. You're already tying the last strap on your cloak when you hear it, and without looking, you know what it means. The boats are ready, the target is picked, the time has come, again. You walk to the gathering point with the same rhythm you've carried for weeks now, shoulders slightly hunched, jaw set, hands already curling into the old shapes of habit. Around you, others shuffle into place, each one moving with the slow, steady pace of men who've done this too many times to feel fear the way they used to. The boy is there too, wolf carving tucked into the front of his belt like a lucky charm or a dare. His face is calm, his eyes sharp. You remember when they were wide. That version of him is gone now, and he doesn't even realize it. You do. You realize it in all of them, in the way no one sings anymore before departure, in how the laughter that used to carry over the campfire now dies out halfway to the throat. The longships groan as they're dragged back into the tide, and the sky is still gray, because of course it is. This kind of morning only comes in one color. You board the ship like you always do, second row from the front, left side, or already waiting. You settle into the bench, fingers curling around the rough wood, and breathe in the scent of salt, pitch, and old sweat. The sea is calm today. Not friendly, just uninterested. It laps at the sides of the hull as if trying to remember whether to swallow or spare you. The order comes, and you row. The motion is automatic now. Shoulders pull, arms strain, hands blister, stroke, stroke, breathe. Someone hums a few notes of an old funeral song. No one joins in. You keep your eyes fixed on the coastline ahead, already starting to shape itself from mist and distance. This time, they say, it's a fortified village, not a monastery, not a farmhouse, something real. Walls, warriors, resistance. Your shoulder twinges at the memory of the last encounter, the stone, the bell, the sprint. You grit your teeth and row harder. The sun breaks through briefly, just a shaft of light slicing down across the waves like a blade. It catches the helmets of your crew, the points of spears laid across the center beam, the wet edge of your own shield propped beside your knee. You think, just for a moment, how strange it is to see beauty in a moment like this, but you don't linger on it. You never do. Beauty is a trick of the light, and light is fleeting. The coastline rises ahead of you, green and gold, dotted with farm plots and a wooden palisade. You hear gulls. You taste salt. You prepare. The ship lands in silence. No horns, no shouts. Just boots on wet sand and the dull thud of shields pulled from the deck. You're among the first to step off. Water lapping at your calves. Mud sucking at your feet. You move quickly, body tense, eyes scanning. The path to the village is narrow, flanked by low hills and scrubby trees. Someone ahead signals. You break into formation, shields up, blades ready. Every sound matters now. The wind, the crows, the creak of leather straps. You advance in a staggered line. Closer, closer. You see movement on the wall. A figure, then two, then six, bows raised, shouting. The first arrow flies. You duck instinctively, but it misses. Another thuds into the ground beside your foot. You don't pause. You rush forward, feet pounding the earth, breath coming hard. The wall looms ahead, a crude gate, a ladder. You reach it at the same time as two others, slam your shield into the wood, and brace. The gate shakes but holds. Someone behind you hurls a torch. Another swings a rope with a grappling hook toward the wall top. It catches. The boy is already climbing, fast and sure. You follow, slower, more cautious. Halfway up, you hear a scream someone else, falling. You don't look. You don't have time. At the top, you see the first defender. Older man, short sword, eyes wide. You swing before he can. He stumbles back. You don't check if he lives. Inside the walls, it's chaos. Smoke, shouting, the clash of iron. You push forward through the melee, shield up, sword striking where it must. You see the boy go down once, then rise again. Blood on his arm, not his. You nod. He nods back. Then he's gone into the fray. You move through a narrow alley, sidestep a spear thrust, retaliate with a hard blow to the ribs. The man crumples. You keep moving. You find a storehouse, door barred. You crowbar it open. Inside grain, tools, a few silver trinkets. You take what you can carry. You leave the rest. The fire spreads now. Someone lit a hut, then another. The village begins to glow. You regroup at the main square. Others arrive, panting, wounded, carrying sacks and barrels. Someone is missing. Two, actually, names spoken low. One confirmed dead. The other no one knows. The leader says, "We move now." No arguments. You run back the way you came. Over the wall, down the hill, through the trees. Arrows follow you. One hits a shield. Another pierces a thigh. A man screams. You keep going. At the beach, the boats are waiting. You pile in, rowing before everyone's seated. The sea takes you back. Only once you're far enough from the shore does anyone breathe. The boy sits opposite you, hands shaking, face streaked with soot and something darker. He holds something in his lap, a necklace. Not gold, not valuable. Just a simple string with a carved stone. He looks at it like it means more than anything you took from that village. You look away. Your hands are covered in ash. The salt stings a cut on your forearm. You're tired in a way that no sleep will ever fix. Back at camp, the stories begin before the wounds are cleaned. This man fought 5. That man held the gate alone. This was the richest village yet. You sit by the fire and say nothing. You know the story will grow on its own, with or without your input. The boy doesn't speak either. He sits close, eyes fixed on the flame, necklace still in hand. Someone hands you a cup. You drink. It burns. You don't care. Later, in your tent, you unwrap your gear. Blood, mud, a cracked blade. You stare at it. You wonder if it's time to replace it. You wonder if it matters. You lie down, stare at the fabric above you, and count the breaths it takes for your heartbeat to slow. Tomorrow will come. More rowing, more raiding, more names you won't remember until they're gone. You close your eyes and see the wall, the arrow, the man you hit who didn't get back up. You don't pray. You don't apologize. You just whisper, "Still here," and let sleep take you like the tide pulling at a weary boat, drifting farther with each silent wave. The next morning tastes like iron and old fire. You wake with a dry mouth, limbs tangled in your cloak, and the soreness of yesterday clinging to your joints like damp moss. The tent smells like sweat and seawater, and something faintly metallic blood. Probably, though you don't check whether it's yours. You sit up slowly, blink into the dimness, and listen. Outside, the camp is already breathing boots on earth. Metal scraping against leather, low voices passing news, names, needs. No one sings. No one ever sings after a real fight. You lace your boots with stiff fingers and step out into the pale light. The air is cold, clean, and heavy with the memory of what you did. A few raiders walk past with purpose, though none of them seem to know exactly what that purpose is. They're moving because it's easier than standing still. You're no different. You walk to the fire, find your place on the log, and accept a bowl of something hot and bland without speaking. You eat because that's what mornings require. Not hunger, just motion. Someone nearby is muttering about the wounded. 2 are still unconscious. 1 might lose his leg. Another is gone already, body not even recovered, dragged out to sea. Probably, or buried under what used to be a roof. You sip your broth and nod like you heard. You didn't. You're watching the boy. He sits by himself, back to a crate, carving something new into the side of his knife handle. His face is blank, his shoulders slumped in that way young men carry when they've seen something that doesn't have a name yet. You wonder if he remembers the woman crying in the square, the one who tried to shield her child with her body, even though no blade was pointed her way. Maybe he didn't see her. Maybe you're the only one who did. Or maybe everyone saw and decided to forget together. That's how it works now. A shared forgetting. Easier than truth. The leader calls for assembly. His voice is rougher than usual, like he's been smoking salt. He stands at the center of camp, flanked by the quartermaster and the scout. The map is back drawn in the dirt again, smeared from yesterday's boots, but still readable. Another raid. Further inland. Bigger this time. More resistance. They've heard of us now, the leader says, as if that's an achievement. He says they'll be ready. He says we must be ready too. You don't ask why. There's no why anymore. Just who. Who will carry? Who will row? Who will not come back? You step forward when your name is called. Same as always. A few new faces join you. Fresh hands. Fewer scars. That won't last. You spend the afternoon preparing. Your sword is sharpened, your shield patched. You rewrap the hilt with a strip of leather torn from someone's belt. They don't complain. Everyone shares in silence now. The boy helps load the boat, his movements automatic. Practiced. He says nothing, but you see how his fingers shake when he ties the rope. You don't mention it. You just fix the knot behind him and give his shoulder a squeeze. He doesn't look at you, but he nods. That's enough. That's all there ever is between any of you now. Quiet acknowledgements. Things felt, but not named. Evening falls with little ceremony. The sky turns the same dull shade of ash and coal. You eat salted fish by the fire, surrounded by tired men too exhausted to argue. Someone tells a story about a dream they had something about wolves and burning ships. No one laughs. Dreams aren't entertainment anymore. They're warnings. You sit with your back against a rock, cloak pulled tight, staring at the stars. There aren't many, but you count them anyway. It gives your mind something to do. 1, 2, then 1 disappears behind a cloud. You keep going. It doesn't matter how many there are, just that you can still count something that hasn't been taken. The night is restless. You wake 3 times, once from cold, once from a sound you couldn't name, and once from a dream you forget the moment your eyes open. You lie awake for a long time after that, listening to the wind roll across the camp like a warning. You think about leaving, just walking into the woods, never stopping, never explaining. But that thought is as soft and useless as the lullabies you've long forgotten. You don't get to leave. Not really. You just get to keep moving until something else stops you. When the horn sounds at dawn, you're already standing. The march begins before the sky fully lightens. You shoulder your pack, sling your shield, and take your place in the line. The boy walks beside you. He doesn't speak. His knife is tucked into his belt, the carved wolf barely visible now, smoothed by his palm. You both keep your eyes ahead. The trail is narrow, muddy, and littered with stones. Your feet ache before the first hour ends. The man behind you starts humming a chant you vaguely remember from winter solstice. You almost join in, but the words stick in your throat. They taste wrong now, out of place. You keep walking. By midday, the sun burns through the clouds enough to make you sweat. The path opens to a field of tall grass, bending and swaying like it's trying to guide you forward or trip you, depending on its mood. In the distance, you see the smoke of cook fires thin, white, innocent. The village is real, lived in, alive. You stop, so do the others. The leader raises his hand. Wait, Watch. You crouch behind a mound of earth, eyes scanning the buildings larger than usual, sturdier, stone chimneys, wooden beams. Not wealthy, but not poor either. Defended hard to say. You see no guards, no patrol, just people, living, existing, laughing. Maybe you can't hear, but the way they move, it's not panic. Not yet. The leader kneels beside you, traces a path in the dirt. Two groups, flank, breach, fast and loud. You nod. So does the boy. So do the rest. No one asks what they're doing here. No one says the obvious, that these people don't know they're about to become a memory. You feel your heartbeat in your teeth. You draw your sword. You tighten the strap on your shield. You stand. The charge begins like every other, sudden, overwhelming, cruel. Your boots slam through grass. Your breath hitches. The village grows closer with every step. A woman drops a basket and screams. A dog barks, then flees. A child runs. You try not to see them. You raise your shield as an arrow whistles past. You hear a man shout orders. Too late. You reach the gate and crash through with your shoulder. The wood splinters. You're inside. The next few minutes are smoke and motion. You fight. You push. You take. You don't stop to think. You can't. Thinking is what happens later. In the dark, someone falls beside you. You don't see who. Another man swings at you with a pitchfork. You block, strike. He drops. You breathe hard, harder, until it hurts. The boy appears beside you, eyes wide, mouth open, blood on his sleeve. Not his. He's holding something, a cloth bundle. He says something you don't hear. You nod anyway. Then it's over. The village is quiet. The fire hasn't started yet, but it will. It always does. You stand in the center, surrounded by the broken pieces of someone else's life. You exhale. You look at your hands. They shake. The boy sits on a step, cradling the bundle. A doll falls from it. He stares at it like it's a weapon. You don't tell him to drop it. You just sit beside him, say nothing. Wait, because sometimes that's all there is to do. The doll lies between you like a question neither of you wants to answer. It's crudely made straw wrapped in linen, with a face drawn in faint ink. The smile faded into something that could just as easily be a frown. One arm is missing. The thread has unraveled. The boy doesn't touch it again. He stares at it, hands clenched around the cloth bundle, as if it might bite or speak. You sit beside him on the wooden step, sword still in hand, shield at your side, the air thick with smoke, not yet visible, but already scenting the world with the promise of fire. Around you, the village exhales slowly, broken roofs, overturned carts, a well that will never draw water the same way again. Someone is shouting near the grain store, calling for help to lift a chest. Another man is laughing, which feels louder than it should. You glance at the boy, his lips parted, but no breath coming. Then he lets the bundle slide from his arms to the ground. Not carelessly, but like he's done pretending it means anything now. He stands slowly. You stand with him. Neither of you looks back at the doll. You walk toward the center of the village, where the rest of your crew is gathering, most with full sacks, bloodied tunics, faces flushed from effort or firelight. The leader is already speaking, voice clipped and matter of fact. Leave in 15. Take what you can. Burn the rest. No ceremony. No question. It's always this way. You nod. Sling a small pack over your shoulder, mostly coins and a brass cup, and adjust the sword at your hip. Your body moves automatically, like it's no longer yours. Just a tool for what must be done. The boy walks beside you, slower than usual. You don't ask what he took. Maybe nothing. Maybe something small. Something that won't weigh much, but will live under his ribs for years. You pass the village hall, its door swinging open from when someone kicked it in. Inside, scrolls lie scattered across the floor, some half burnt, others still rolled tight and tied with wax seals. Knowledge, maybe, law, songs. No one's interested. You step around them like kindling. In one corner, a chair lies on its side, and for a moment, you picture someone reading by a fire, legs crossed, unaware that their last night of peace had already begun. You blink, and the image vanishes. You move on. By the time you reach the boats again, the fire is rising behind you. Smoke streams across the sky like a torn sail, and the village crackles in protest. The sound is constant timber giving way, thatch catching, pottery splitting from heat. You've heard it enough times to recognize the voices inside it, the size of things that once mattered. The boy watches the flames longer than you do. When he turns back to the sea, his face is calm again, not empty, just sealed. The longships bob gently in the surf, pulled and released by the same tide that brought you here. You help push one into deeper water, your boots slipping in the wet sand, your arms numb from more than just effort. The oars are cold. The sea is colder. You row without words. The crew finds its rhythm quickly. There is no victory song, no boasting, just the sound of wood on water and breath turning into mist. You glance around at the others, some bruised, some bleeding, all quiet. You meet the boy's eyes once, and he looks away before you do. That night, the boats land in silence. No one cheers. The beach receives you like a grave receives a body, inevitable, unremarkable, final. You unload the goods into the temporary camp and report to the quartermaster. He gives each man a coin purse, lighter than expected, always is. You don't count yours. Just tie it to your belt and walk away. Back at the fire, someone is already drinking. Mead, probably, or something pretending to be. He passes the flask. You take one sip and hand it on. It burns, the kind that doesn't even try to taste like comfort. You sit with your back to a tree, listening to the wind pull through the leaves like it's looking for someone to blame. The boy is nearby, carving again. This time, it's not a wolf. It might be a bird, or a woman, or maybe just shapes. You don't ask. He carves now the way others pray quietly, often, and without expecting answers. One of the older men tells a story about a raid years ago, back when he was still new and his arms still eager. He speaks of a church filled with gold, of a priest who tried to curse them with a handful of ash and got his head split for the effort. Everyone laughs, not cruelly, just politely. You manage a smile. You've heard the story before. You'll hear it again. It changes a little each time. That's how memory works in this life. Truth softens at the edges, bleeds into myth, becomes something easier to carry. You wonder if your own stories will be told someday. You hope not. Later, lying in your tent, you feel the weight of everything. Not just the sack of coins at your hip or the bruises on your ribs, but the invisible things, the silence of the villagers, the face of the boy, the doll, the smoke. Your eyes are open in the dark, and you don't try to close them. You listen to the camp settle, to boots scuffing, to someone murmuring in their sleep. You count those sounds the way you once counted stars, not for meaning, just to know something's still out there. You think about your hands, about how they've changed, less calloused, more scarred. They used to hold tools, or maybe flowers. You can't remember, not clearly. You turn your palm up in the dark and stare at it like it holds a secret. It doesn't. It's just a hand, a tired one, a survivor's. You curl it into a fist, then relax it again. Sleep comes late. When you've run out of things to remember, it's dreamless. Or maybe you just don't wake with any of it left. Morning is gray. Again, you rise, wash your face with cold water from a basin someone left half full, and eat what's given. The boy sits across from you, the carving from last night in his hand. He doesn't speak. You don't either. You just nod once, and he nods back. That's the entire exchange. You think about asking to leave, to stay behind, to go on a different raid, a different boat, a different road. You won't. You never do. You walk the same path because it's the one you know, even when it leads nowhere. You strap your sword to your belt, check your gear, and wait. You already know someone will call your name, and when they do, you'll rise. Because that's what you've learned. It doesn't matter if the raid is just, or if the coin is fair, or if the people you become in the village are ones you can live with. It only matters that you keep going, that you don't stop, that you survive long enough for someone else to forget what you've done. You tell yourself it's duty, but deep down, you know it's just momentum, the kind that only ends when something breaks, and you haven't broken yet. You can feel it now at the end of the season, though no one says it out loud. The signs are there, worn into the wind, the sky, and the faces around you. The days are growing shorter, the earth colder, and the soil more reluctant to hold footprints. Your boots don't sink like they used to. They scrape, scratch, crunch against the frost-crusted ground that signals one final push before the winter locks everything in place. The men are slower to wake, slower to joke, and slower still to sharpen their blades. Even the boy's carving has changed from animals and shapes to nothing at all. He just stares at the wood now, knife in hand, as if unsure what he's trying to make. You watch him sometimes from the edge of camp, his shoulders hunched, his expression unreadable. You know that look. It's the one you wear when you start to forget whether you're the hammer or the nail. The leader says there's time for one more. One last raid before snow makes raiding a memory, and survival the only priority. The others nod. They always do. And you, of course, nod with them. Because saying no feels like trying to stop the tide by turning your back on it. This time, the target is distant 3 days' march, across unfamiliar land, toward a settlement someone heard of from someone who swore it was full of untouched goods. You don't ask questions. You pack light. The march begins before sunrise. You shoulder your sack, adjust your cloak, and fall into line. The forest around you is quiet, save for the brittle crunch of frost and the dry rustle of bare branches overhead. Birds don't sing this time of year. Even the animals seem to understand that silence is safer. The crew walks in near-perfect rhythm, not from discipline but from fatigue. Everyone steps like they've stepped this way 100 times. Because they have, even the newcomers are silent now. No songs, no false bravado, just breath and the sound of boots grinding against the frozen trail. On the second day, a man twists his ankle in a ravine. He grits his teeth, tries to continue, but every step is pain, and soon he's slowing the line. The leader doesn't say anything cruel. He just stops, crouches beside him, and says, "Stay here. We'll find you after." The man nods, doesn't argue, just sits on a fallen log, hands folded, eyes on the fire someone leaves behind for him. No one asks if he'll still be there in 3 days. Some don't expect to see him again. You look back once as the trail curves. He's still watching you. You raise a hand. He doesn't return the gesture. The third morning is colder. You wake with frost on your cloak, your breath thick as smoke. Your fingers are stiff, and it takes longer to gear up. Even the boy moves slower. But when you crest the last ridge and see the village below, small, tidy, pressed against the edge of a lake like it's hiding there, you feel something old stir inside you. Not rage, not greed, just the reflex that rises when you see a thing and know it doesn't know it's about to end. The leader gathers the group, speaks softly, reminds everyone to be quick, clean. No fires this time. Just take what's needed and leave. You nod, your face unreadable. Inside, your stomach is tightening again, not from fear, but from familiarity. You've done this too often to pretend it's new. The descent is smooth, no traps, no patrols, just a few dogs that bark and run. You break the gate before anyone inside even registers what's happening. The sound of wood splintering is sharper in the cold air. You enter behind your crew, sword drawn, eyes scanning. You move through the alleys and yards like smoke fast, formless, choking. A man tries to stand between you and a storage shed. He doesn't last long. You see the boy dash past you, eyes wide, breath clouding behind him. You keep moving. You find the pantry. You find coins. You find a woman crouched in the corner, holding something under her cloak. You stare at her. She stares back. Her lips move. Maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. You don't ask. You back away. You tell yourself it's because she's not a threat, but you know better. The raid ends quickly. No one dies on your side. 2 of them do. Defenders. Brave. pointless. You carry sacks down the slope, legs aching from days of marching, from the weight of stolen things that didn't ask to be carried. The boy walks beside you, face pale, jaw tight. He's holding a ring. It's too big for him. Probably belonged to someone's father, or brother, or someone who thought their hands would always be strong enough to protect their home. He slips it into his pocket without looking at it. You say nothing. The sun is beginning to set. A thin light stretches over the lake, reflecting red off the ripples like blood smeared on glass. That night, you camp near the water. No fire, just cold rations, cloaks pulled tight, and the silence of men who have run out of new ways to tell themselves it's worth it. You sit with your back against a tree, eyes closed, listening to the lake lap against the shore. The boy is beside you, carving again. This time, it's a boat. Small, simple. You wonder if he'll float it. Let it drift out into the water like a confession. You wonder if it would sink. You don't ask. You just watch. He finishes, holds it in his palm for a while, then sets it beside him in the snow. It stays there, doesn't move. Neither do you. In the morning, you rise with frost in your beard and stiffness in every joint. The long march back begins without a word. The wind is sharper now, like it's trying to slice through your cloak and your thoughts. You keep your head down and your pace steady. The boy walks beside you. He's not limping, but he's not whole either. You feel the same way. When you reach the spot where the injured man was left, he's gone. The log is cold, the fire long dead. No sign of struggle, just absence. You move on. By the time you return to camp, snow is starting to fall. The first flakes land on your sleeves like ash. Others emerge from tents and shelters, blinking at the weather as if surprised that the world still turns. You drop your sack at the quartermaster's feet. He nods, hands you your share. Heavier this time, not by much. Enough to notice. You don't count it. You just nod back and walk toward the fire. That night, someone sings, not loud, not cheerful, just a low hum that builds into a tune no one remembers the words to. You close your eyes, letting it wash over you. You hear boots stomping, logs cracking, men muttering in sleep. You hear the boy whispering something to his carving. You hear your own breath, steady, unremarkable. You're still here, and that means something. Maybe not much, but something. You sleep deeply. For once, the dreams are still. No smoke, no screams, just the sound of water, the image of a tiny boat, carved and floating, still upright, still drifting. And now the story slows. The fire burns low. The snow falls soft, almost without weight, blanketing the world in something close to peace. You sit there in the dim hush of night, wrapped in a worn cloak, eyes half-lidded, body sore in ways you've stopped naming. Around you, the camp is quiet, no singing now, no clinking of coin or sharpening of blades, just breath, steady and human, the kind of silence that feels earned. The boy sleeps nearby, curled beside his pack, the little carved boat resting beside his hand like it might float into his dreams. You watch the way his chest rises and falls, slow, even. He's not a boy anymore. None of you are what you were. And that, too, is something the sagas don't say, how the cost of becoming isn't written in wounds, but in the way your soul begins to whisper instead of sing. The wind presses softly against the canvas of your tent. You feel it like a memory of another shore, another season, another time you thought you might stop, but you didn't, because you didn't know how. And now, in the stillness, you finally allow yourself a long exhale. You stare at the embers. One by one, they fade, and still you remain. So let your shoulders soften now. Let the cold become a cradle. Let the weight of all you've carried settle into the earth for just one night. You've walked far. You've seen more than most. And though tomorrow may ask again tonight, no one is asking. Tonight, you sleep.